Morning, Linda.
Good morning, all. How are you all out there?
Good, good.
Hey, Ken, how many panelists do we have on right now?
8.
8, so we should wait a few minutes. 3 more to go.
I haven't heard from anybody whether they will or won't be attending, so you should start whenever you want.
Okay.
There are 42 participants on the call already, Jay.
Oh, 42. Thanks for letting me know that. That's good. Okay, well, I guess we can get started, and let me begin by welcoming everyone to the March 14th panel meeting. I think we've got a full agenda today with a lot of interesting information to be presented. I will start off with the roll call. I am here, Jay Brown, David Mintz,
David Mintz is here.
Tony Lappy. Well, hopefully Tony will come back on. John Jensen.
I'm here, Jay.
Thank you, John. Sandy Stillwell. Thanks, Sandy. Marguerite Maville. I guess Marguerite is not on yet. Ken Gill.
Here.
Thank you, Ken. Bruce McDonald.
Yep, I'm here, Jay.
Just all saw you. Linda Laird.
Hi.
Ann Brady.
Morning.
And you've told me you have to leave the panel meeting for about a half hour at 10 o'clock.
I do.
Yeah, we'll try to coordinate the agenda so that your agenda item is covered, while you're here.
I appreciate that, Jay. It's an emergency. Otherwise, I wouldn't. Yeah.
No
Thanks very
problem.
much. Okay.
And then lastly, Bob Walter.
Here, good morning.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Okay. First order of business is approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? Yes, that means everybody is happy with them. All in favor of approving the minutes, raise hand, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Okay, well, Kevin Ruane, normally we open the meeting with Kevin. We received notice about a half hour ago that Kevin will not be able to join us until around 10 o'clock today. So Ken, would you let me know when Kevin signs back on, and we'll try to put him on, as soon as we can finish the current agenda item that we're working on?
Will do.
Okay, so passing over Kevin, then our next item is the Causeway update. And I believe we have a Department of Transportation person available to give us an update on where we are.
Sure, this is Jennifer Dorning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, so it's Jennifer Donning.
Dorning, like morning
Dorning.
with a D.
Okay.
So it's
Well,
Dorning.
Jennifer, we appreciate you being here. So are you with Florida Department of Transportation or Lee County or?
So I'm a consultant with Florida Department of Transportation for this project. I've actually
Okay.
worked with FDOT and Lee County for 20 years.
Uh-huh.
But I live in Iona. I have been visiting Captiva since I was 2, and my son goes to school at Sanibel.
Oh, wow.
So
So you know the community well.
yeah,
Well,
I'm
that's
actually on the PTA and all that good stuff. So
okay. Well, that's
I was
great.
thrilled when
Well,
they asked me to help out with this project because it's definitely something I would have been involved in, whether they asked me to or not.
okay, well, that's great. We're so glad to have you this morning, and
Thank
we're just looking for whatever update you would like to provide us. And
Sure, I
then,
actually put together a real quick presentation.
okay, that would be terrific.
All right, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Can you see the
Yes,
presentation?
I see.
Okay. All right, great. And some of this stuff you may know. We have a little timeline here of everything that happened. We all know the hurricane and the emergency repairs and how quickly all that happened. 3 weeks had the bridge opened. So this summer, we're looking at starting what is considered the permanent restoration. And we anticipate it'll be completed by the end of the year. And just because I've been looking at this slide a lot recently, it looks like a broken bone. And I feel that, like the ache of the broken bone. So I just thought I would share that.
Yeah.
One of the updates we have is that the Lee County Board of County Commissioners approved the proposed resiliency measures and the recreational amenities to be moved forward. The recreational amenities were actually designed last February by their staff, but since we're out there doing construction, obviously we're going to have to, that's all going to start, happening at one time. As a part of the recreational amenities that Lee County will be doing, there is something that everyone's really concerned about and interested in, and that's they will be putting a bike lane on the Causeway Islands. So that's really interesting to a lot of people. And then adding turn lanes and parking, and a lot of that stuff was getting ready to happen anyways. But any of those improvements that are part of the roadway is going to be done as a part of this project. So when we do the actual road on the Causeway Islands, we'll be putting in the bike lanes.
Jennifer, excuse me for a minute. Do you want us to hold our questions until you've gone through, or do you want to take them as we?
You can ask questions and I'll do my best to answer them. And if I can't, I will get with Katie Sherrard, who's, we all
Right.
know
Katie.
Katie.
Mhm.
Yep. And I'll get the answers for you. But yeah, you can go ahead and ask questions now if you'd
Okay.
like.
Please continue on.
Okay. Oop, there we go. So for the permanent repairs, we will be raising the road 2 feet. And like I said, the bike lanes. And then one of the biggest things is the structure's resiliency. And I'll go into this a little bit more later. It's the gabion baskets, the large boulders, and then the sheet pile that we see all the time right now. And that's what they're putting in all along the road. And there's big metal sheets. And then also the seagrass and the mangrove growth is really important to the resiliency as well.
So Jennifer?
Yeah.
Are the roads going to be 2 feet above sea level, or are they going to, what's the?
From what I understand, it's 2 feet higher than what they were before the storm.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. So I'm going to show some of these. These are concept plans that were provided to Lee County, and this is what Lee County approved. These are available on the Sanibel Causeway website that we've just started, as well as the Lee County website. So if you want to look into these a little bit further, you can. So this is the riprap that we talk about, all the rock. Now, when we do the causeway, it will cover up over that sheet pile wall. So it will be rock. You won't see that. You won't see the metal. So that is in the pink area over here. Then this is by the toll plaza in this design, in this slide. And then these are the gabion baskets. So again, like here's another picture of what they will look like. But again, we're doing things a little differently on the causeway because we want to try to get it back to the closest as it was before. So they'll either have material on both sides or asphalt. So they'll be shielded and you won't see those baskets either. And that is actually the red area on the causeway. So a lot of this stuff you won't see. A lot of the stuff we're doing now is just going to be, it's going to be like, you know, undercover. So when we're driving across the causeway, we want it to feel the same that it did prior to the storm, but just be a lot stronger.
Are the gabion baskets stronger than the sheet metal or vice versa?
You know, I think they work in tandem. I think that it's one of those things, and I'm not an engineer. I did public information and I was a Spanish major. So I'm not going to tell you something and be absolutely sure about it. But from what I understand, there's different areas for different things, and the way the sheet pile is being used, and then we're putting rock behind the sheet pile. And the gabion baskets, I think, are on the ends. So you can see here in the red area how they go, they're everywhere. So I can ask Katie about that. Like I said, I'm not an engineer.
Thank you.
Hey,
But
Jennifer,
there-
it's Bruce McDonald. Just one quick question. So I think the last time we had a presentation on sort of the concept, and I just wanted to double check my recollection here, but we're basically, the design here is being done so that it's not going to prevent water. We're not trying to build it up high enough so water doesn't go over these islands, but rather stop it from eroding in the event that it does. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we're building it to this, the 500-year storm event now. So what we're just trying to do is to keep it from washing away again.
Okay.
So that's the thing. I mean, I think, you know, even the way it was before the storm, we would have water come up over it. I remember picking my son up on, I think it was Eta, I want to say, Tropical Storm Eta, and the water was up over the road when we were driving over the causeway, but it didn't wash away. So as soon as the water went back down, we were okay.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yep. Okay, so here's the plans for Island B. And again, if you all want to look at these closer, they are available. And this shows where we'll be using a lot of mangroves. We know a lot of us, you know, remember what it was like when you could go walk to the causeway and you'd walk through the mangroves, and it was just, it was special. It was different, and there was a lot of wildlife in the mangroves. But the mangroves also have a really good purpose of preventing erosion. So that's why we are trying to promote mangrove growth with anything that we're doing. So out there right now, I'm sure if you've driven across the causeway, if you're here, if you're up north, these are some good pictures to let you know what's going on. We are driving sheet pile, and that's those metal curtains that we are driving in everywhere. And like I said, you won't see them, but just know they are there, and they're protecting that bridge. And we call this armoring the bridge. So that's a lot of the work we're doing right now. This is under the emergency permit still. We are also putting in stone. You've seen a lot of rock out there. I actually called Katie and said, where's all this rock going? Is the beach disappearing? And she said, no, it's a staging area. That's all the rock that's going behind the sheet pile. And I said, okay, because I drive it every day multiple times, and I was a little concerned. So that's what we're doing now. We're still working under the emergency permit. So as far as the permanent repairs go, we have submitted our permit plans and our application, and we're waiting approval. And that can be up to 90 days. So we're just hoping that they really want to push this through so we can get moving. But in the meantime, we're having detailed design meetings, and we're actually coordinating with local landscape architects and coastal engineers and people that are down here, people that, you know the area well and know the habits of the way things happen. So I think it's really important that the community is involved, and that's one of the reasons I was happy to be a part of this project. So the cost. This is costing $285 million approximately. And Lee County is scheduled to be reimbursed for FDOT is scheduled to be reimbursed $239 million. So 46.1 will be paid by Lee County, and part of that is for those recreational amenities. But this is a high level cost estimate. This is just, as we keep going through and seeing things, but those are the approximate numbers we're looking at. So it's pretty impressive. So I wanted to go ahead and put some pictures in here just in case people haven't been down. A lot of us have seen these, the before and after the storm. And like I said, that is definitely looks like a broken bone to me. This is pre-storm at Punta Rassa. And you can see down here how it's just changed so much where the parking lot was. And that's actually a staging area right now. And we have a lot of rock there too. We actually have barges that are pulling up and getting loaded with the rock to take out. So there's Island A, and you can see that river that almost, broke apart a lot of that sand and then the roadway. And then Island B again. It's just, once you look at these, it's amazing. We do know that these T-groins that Lee County had recently put in did do their job. And so that was a really good thing that they went ahead and had put those in prior to the storm. So here's some neat stuff. This is since we got here. So here is by the toll booth, and this was in October. So this is what it looked like when we started to do the emergency repairs. And now it's so much cleaner. You can tell that we're doing a lot of, we're building up a lot of the structure around with the material. Here's another picture of how it is now. So you can see how we're filling in behind the sheet pile. So you really won't even know it's there, which I think is just amazing, because when you see all that metal going in and you like all the green and all the wildlife like I do down here, it was concerning. So we just want to make sure that everyone understands what we're doing it for, and that it won't be that way in the end. This is a picture of where Punta Rassa, where we're actually loading that rock onto the barges. It looks to me like it's the most ideal work environment for some of these construction crews. They've been dreaming about playing with this machinery on a beach their whole life, and now they get to do it. Here's some pictures of Island A, and this is back in October. I'm sorry, that's Punta Rassa, but here's Island A. And then now you can see it's just so much more built up and just looks so much more substantial. And this is them moving the material off the barges. So there's quite a bit of movement going on out there. There's a lot of people, a lot of material. We have asked that everyone drive 20 miles an hour on the causeway. I know it's virtually impossible, but because of the width of the lanes, that's what the requirement is. So that's why you will see Lee County Sheriff's Office pulling people over out there. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have a website now for the Sanibel Causeway. I am constantly updating it as we get more information.
Are all of these slides and everything you've presented today on this website in some form?
They are not yet. Those concept design plans that I showed you that were sent to Lee County that they approved, those are on there. And
Okay.
they're under concept plans under the documents part of the page. I'll see if we can go ahead and get this PowerPoint on there. I think we're going to try to build up that site so there's a lot of background so people can follow it. So I'll definitely look into that and get into getting it on there as soon as we can.
Jennifer,
Yes.
this is John. When you mentioned the repairs will be done by the end of the year, is that the emergency repairs or the permanent repairs?
They are scheduling, anticipating, estimating to have everything done by the end of the year.
That would
Permanent
be
repairs.
Now that's roadway. That's not like Lee County's recreation part, but that's roadway.
okay. So the roadway will be by end of the year. You all think the roadway will be as it's going to permanently be, but you will not have all of the amenities and so forth that are planned in place.
Correct. So everything is still hinging on these permits also. So depending how long it takes for us to get the permits back from all the agencies, that also can make that, that time frame adjust. But the recreational amenities, that's going to be Lee County. So they'll be out there doing work. I don't know how long it's going to take them to do what they're doing. I'm not sure. Or I don't know when they're actually going to be able to start either. I don't know if they can start before we're done with the roadway or if they can start a couple months before. It just depends on how the sequencing of the work would shake out.
Well, here's a naive question for you. How could anybody, who is involved in permitting it and giving a permit know enough or know more than the people that are actually doing the project design?
I don't think I'm allowed to answer that question.
I just, I guess you're saying that the permitting process is, you're still able to be doing productive work while this permitting process is underway.
Yes, exactly. Because all the sheet pile that's going in, that's a part of the emergency repair, it has to be there anyways. It actually has to be there by hurricane season. So it needs to go in. We're still being productive. We're not being set back at all.
Okay,
So as of right now, everything is moving forward. And like I said, they're still having the design meetings and tweaking things because they're constantly trying to find, we have the best of the best on this job. I'll tell you what, it's impressive. They're constantly trying to find ways to make it more resilient, more cost effective, more green. So, you know, the time isn't being wasted at all.
okay.
Thank you.
Well,
So
I
Jen-
just think it's remarkable that we could get a job of this scope, done this quickly.
Mhm.
I mean, the hurricane, if I remember, was September 28th, so we're talking about 15 months.
Yeah.
To have a project of this magnitude completed, might
It-
change my perception of government some.
Right. It's amazing to see how many people are out there all the time. I've driven by at all hours and I've seen lights on in the offices. I know that Katie worked many hours those first few months. And I know she's not the only one. So a lot of people, it's not just a job to them. It's been much more, which is,
Yeah.
we're very lucky.
Yeah,
Jennifer,
I can see that.
this is David Mintz. This may not be something you can answer, but I'm just curious whether or not DOT has been involved in any way, or you've been involved in any way with determining if the tolls going forward are going to change given the exorbitant cost of this reconstruction.
No, I haven't heard anything about that. That definitely would be a Lee County question. But I haven't heard any discussion. Because Lee County isn't having to pay Federal Highway is paying a lot of this. So I know that Lee County is probably having to put out quite a bit of money throughout the county. So I'm not sure though. That would definitely be a question for either Commissioner Wayne or just talking to someone at the county under operations or leeway.
Okay, thank you.
Questions from other panel members before we see if the audience has questions? Okay, Ken, do we have any questions from our audience?
We do not.
Okay, well, with that, Jennifer, we very much appreciate the update today. Thanks for taking the time to give us that update. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And we appreciate being able to come out. By educating the community, it helps all of us out. So thanks for asking, and would love to come back when we have more information too.
Okay, well, we will check in advance of each meeting with, I guess it should be Katie. We should direct the question to.
Either one of us. My email and phone number is on all those updates you put out every week. So You can always contact me or Katie.
Okay, very good.
All right.
And,
Thank you.
and Jennifer, you should just know that there were 80 people listening to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good. I appreciate the platform.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, let's see where we are on our schedule. So I'm sure Kevin has not checked back in yet. So next up would be our Sheriff's Department update from Mike Sawicki. Mike, are you around?
Right now, I'm not seeing him or anybody else I can identify as part of the sheriff's office. If they are on the line, raise your hand so I'll know.
Okay, well, let's try for Jeff Powell.
Morning, everybody.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Good morning, Jeff.
First and foremost, I just want to remind everybody, especially, it sounded like you said we had 80 people on the line. So We have had a few increase in fires on the island as well as marine related calls. So I can't stress the importance of calling 911 during any emergency. Do not call the fire station. Do not call my cell phone. That is not the fastest method to get us there. Especially, you know, if it's a true emergency, call 911. If it's not emergent, yes, please call the fire station. You guys have my cell phone. You have questions, that's fine. But we had a fire maybe 2-ish weeks ago on a weekend, and the phone call came to my cell phone on a Sunday afternoon. So I know everybody loves to imagine me just sitting there waiting for somebody to call me to go run and do something, but that is not the most efficient means of getting a fire out, is to call my cell phone. So thank you for thinking of me, but please call 911 in any emergency. That is your best avenue to get the resources we need there quickly.
Okay.
All right, so with that, the only other updates I have kind of, I know you guys probably get sick of hearing this, but if you have contractors doing work on your property, please remind them to not pile up sand, hurricane debris, construction debris on top of or around the hydrants. I know my guys are getting tired of digging them out on a daily basis. But more importantly, if we have to use that hydrant and it's buried, it's going to take us that much longer to get a water source established. So if you have any of that work being done, please remind your contractors, do not cover the hydrants. And then the only other thing is we are in the final stages of our FEMA reimbursement as far as the fire district goes from our operational costs during the storm. So we're in that final review stage of that. Other than
Hey,
that,
Jeff.
yep,
Hey,
go
Jeff,
ahead, Bruce.
Bruce, what's the status of the ambulance service?
So the last conversation, the storm kind of
Yeah.
derailed the timing of that a little bit. They've got some staffing issues and some unit loss and stuff like that. And then I guess I don't know the exact reason, but something along that timeline. They also decided to look at other options as far as a place to live. I don't know the reasoning. Cost obviously was not originally because the
Jeff,
cost that we
I'm sorry, what do you mean looking at for another place to live?
They had contacted other commercial facilities on the island to house the unit somewhere else as opposed to the fire station.
Okay, but that doesn't, they're still committing to providing us our own ambulance service for Captiva.
As far as I'm aware, yeah, I guess whatever their reasoning was, I don't know, it wasn't provided to me, but they were considering other options as opposed to putting it here, putting it somewhere else on the island. So whether
Didn't we sign a lease or some sort of a agreement?
no, so the lease was never signed to begin with.
Okay.
So that's kind of where it sits. I spoke with their management last week on the topic because they were out here exploring them. I don't know what the outcome of that is, but I'll see them tomorrow. So hopefully I'll have an answer on that.
Well, Jeff, if there's any issue with this, would you please let us know? Because we have ways
Of course. Yep.
to keep this on original plan.
Yeah, as far as I know, the plan as far as staffing the unit out here has not changed. I've seen their staffing schedule and it lists a Captiva unit. So I don't think there was any issue with placing the unit out here. I don't know their reasoning on looking to go to another facility. I don't know if they thought another one would better suit them. I'm not sure. I don't know those answers, but.
Yeah, could you just clarify? I mean, you're using phrases that you know, contractual phrases, but when you say the unit, you're talking about the ambulance?
Yes, yeah, sorry.
So as far as we know, the ambulance will still be housed or stationed at our fire station, correct?
Yeah, so I don't know if it will be at the fire station or if it will be another building on the island. That was what they were exploring, if they had a better option other than the fire station.
better option to keep the ambulance other than the fire station?
That is what I am told, yes.
Okay,
I mean,
could you, as soon as you find out what that other option may be, could you please let us know?
I don't know if they're gonna provide the other options to me, being that I'm one of them, but if I receive that information, I can, I'd do what I can to pass it along.
Could you just maybe take a second, just explain why another option would even make any sense or be feasible, since your people will be at your fire station and the people who would have to work with the ambulance would be at the fire station? I don't quite understand what the parameters are that they're looking at.
I don't know, David. I'm not part of their development committee or their feasibility of where they want to go or where they should go. I'm not part of those conversations. I don't know. You know, they don't work for me. I don't know. So I don't have those answers.
Is Christine still in the mix here, as far as you know?
I would say she is at some level. She's still one of the assistant county managers. So.
All right.
Any other questions?
well, the only reason I can think of is y'all are negotiating a lease agreement, for what, to house the ambulance there. I mean, it makes no sense to me. Would one of the commissioners have a better understanding of this, like Jeff Brown or?
No. They haven't had any meetings with them about it. Like I said, I only knew that they were exploring other options because they were out here one day and told my staff that. So, so when I reached out to them, it was kind of a vague conversation as to what they were actually doing. So that's why I said I followed up further up the food chain, if you will, with their management. So I'll speak to them tomorrow.
Okay, well, this is, needless to say, we worked long and hard to get this ambulance.
Yeah,
We
and
better be darn sure that we're not deviating from this now.
yeah, exactly. I don't think that's an option because, like I said, they already have schedules in place for staffing that are supposed to work on the island. So I don't think they would have gone that far in their contracts, because it's, that involves their union and everything else. So I don't see them pulling back on work schedules and everything else. But again, we met as the district for the lease. We met their requested cost. So I don't think it's a cost value. But I don't know. Maybe that changed after the hurricane and they don't want to spend as much. I don't have those answers. I don't know. But
Let me ask one more
either
quick
way.
question. Is there a separate cost related to the actual physical ambulance versus the housing of the employees at the firehouse? Are there two separate things, or are they together in the same lease?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question.
Okay, my understanding is that what you're negotiating with the county is actually the keeping of the ambulance at the firehouse, the physical space. And then there's staffing issues associated with that, right?
Yeah, so that I have nothing to do with that. That's that's Lee County staffing, however that happens. Yeah, not to me.
But if they staff people at your firehouse, doesn't that have to be some sort of contractual arrangement that has to be undertaken?
Not with me, no. The ambulance is considered, that lease accounts for the minimum staffing for that ambulance. You have to have at least 2 on that ambulance. That's accounted for. We know that. They're not just leasing the space to park the ambulance. They're leasing the entire building, bedrooms, bathrooms, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so if they decide they want another facility to place where you would place that ambulance, then you're talking about you would be also finding another facility to place the staff that go with the ambulance?
Yeah. If they found another place, they would have to be able to house the staffing and the unit. It's not just a place to park the unit. It's a full facility to actually live in per se.
Okay, so they go together, so you're not gonna
They
have
do.
it's in one place and the staff somewhere else.
Correct. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, okay, I understand it. Do you have any problem if we make a couple of independent inquiries about this, given the fact that it's now public information?
I mean, you're free to do what you want. You don't work for me. I would probably at least appreciate waiting till after tomorrow until I at least talk to him.
Okay, okay.
But obviously, like I said, you're free to do what you wish.
Okay, all right. Just maybe, just let us know how tomorrow goes and we'll
Okay.
respect the timetable.
Will do, David.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Any other-
Jeff, anything else? Any other questions for our fire chief? Ken, anything from the audience?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you, Jeff, for the update. Okay, let's move on to our CPEPD update and Daniel Munt. Daniel, are you here?
Yes, good morning.
Hi.
I just had a couple quick updates. We had our board meeting yesterday. It was fairly uneventful. I did want to let everybody know that on Saturday, we were able to reopen our Allison Hagerup parking lot. It does currently have limited signage but the restrooms are in place and there's a place for people to park and enjoy the beach. We'll be continually working to improve that parking lot to pre-EN and hopefully to better levels. So we still need to get additional signage, parking bumpers and the sort, but I'm really happy and appreciative of the county staff for their hard work in getting that back reopened. The other event that happened yesterday is the CED commissioners wanted to host a workshop meeting to discuss CEPD legal authority over erosion control projects. So we'll be hosting that on the 23rd of April. And I just wanted to give everybody a quick reminder, it was already published, but our board meeting next month is a little abnormal in that it'll be on the 17th of April as opposed to the week prior due to the Easter holiday. So barring any questions, I know Linda has a presentation I believe she gave yesterday, so I won't step on her toes. So barring any questions, that's it for me.
Okay, do we have a total cost estimate for the beach repair? All the repairs to the beach that are necessary because of do we have a total cost estimate from that and the funding worked out?
That is still being worked. We have an erosion report from Aptum that's still being finalized, should be to us within, I would say, probably the next week or so. And then there's still a little back and forth between, we initially made a request to FEMA to fund some of the beach restoration. However, with their reinterpretation, they pushed it as an Army Corps responsibility. So it's under review from the Army Corps. So kind of if the Army Corps deems that we don't have the easements necessary or any other item where they don't wish to participate in the project, they'll push it back to FEMA. So we're staying on top of them to continually get updates on that. And I anticipate they will have made a decision probably within the month. I know it's under a legal review with their attorneys right now.
But
Do
Jay, it's
go ahead,
about 13 million right now.
Right, that's what I thought. And I thought it was going to be about half funded by the county and half funded by either FEMA or the Army Corps.
It depends how it plays out.
Okay. Is there any risk that that the project will not go forward in its entirety and we'll get our beach back to where it was? Is there any risk of that, one, or any risk, two, of Captiva property owners having to be assessed in some manner to repair the beach?
I would say there's probably always the potential, depending on the project cost. I'm not sure, really who developed that. I think that maybe it was a county developed $13 million project, but once we go out to bid, we'll know the full cost of it. We did request roughly 52% of the project from appropriations grants, as well as you mentioned, the 48% from the county of that $13 million.
How about, I think at the last time or a couple of meetings ago, we had a presentation and there was some interpretation of how much sand we lost. And I think depending on how you did the calculation, it ranged from like 50,000 cubic yards to 500,000 cubic yards. And has that been sorted out, that issue?
That is still under works, and that is, the presentation you're referring to was given by Nicole Sharp,
Yeah.
our engineer, and so the 50%, the 50,000 was the Dry Beach, whereas I think it was a little over 500,000 is under the water level that probably won't reach the beach. Maybe I know she's here. Carrie might be able to speak a little bit better to that.
Because obviously that would drive the scope of the project, right? And the cost.
Absolutely, because I don't know what they're charging currently for the cost of cubic yards of sand, but during our last project, we paid $16 per cubic yard of sand.
That's not Daniel, my understanding was that a lot of the lost sand ended up below the water line, but near the beach, but not on the beach. And the dry beach alone lost about if I understand Bruce correctly, and what was said before, about 500,000 cubic yards. But a lot of that sand ended up in the water, but close to the dry beach. And depending on what agency funds this project, either they will give us the full amount of sand that will be necessary to replenish the dry beach, which is about 500,000 cubic yards, or they'll only give us something like 50 or 80,000 cubic yards if they're saying we still have the sand, even though the sand is not on the dry beach, but is under the water. So I think that Bruce is asking is, are we still in a position of not knowing which calculation we're going to use because we don't know which agency is actually going to fund this project?
Yes, thank you, David. That's a better way to phrase what I was trying to say, but yes, we still don't have that determination made.
So the question, and then that go back to what Jay is saying, if we only get 80,000 cubic yards because they say we have all the sand under the water, we're not going to be able to replenish the dry beach or the dunes, at least through this funding, because they're not going to give us that 500,000 cubic yards of sand we need to replenish the beach, which then would leave us without the dunes and without the replenished beach unless we do our own assessment. Is that?
I don't know how Bob feels about this, but I feel like we're going down a rat hole here about, what happens here and what happens there in terms of these possibilities.
We're going after 450,000 or 500,000 yards on our about.
Going after that, that's our plan. Maybe things will happen, different things can happen in the future, in which case the CEPD will deal with it. Is there some possibility somehow that taxpayers may have to pay more? Yes. Do we plan on that happening? No. Or if it is, it's going to be incremental, small. CEPD is committed to restoring the beach. We have to let things play out. So it's time to just, in my opinion, and Bob, you can correct me here, is just to chill out a little bit about it.
Well, it needs to play out, but we're not, from an effort perspective, we're certainly not chilling out. We're talking about it on a weekly basis.
Right.
Pushing.
I think also that
Dan, if I can finish, our biggest risk right now, my concern is time. It's just taking forever to get these things approved and done.
Right, and I'm concerned, and we're not going to be able to restore the beaches for this fall. And I'm upset about that. I don't know. That's very concerning to me. So, and I don't think we have a contingency plan what to do between now and then, because we've got lots of issues with how to do anything, and it's totally wasted money. Like, we could put in more plants, but then they're going to all die, and how much when we really restore. So it may be that we just have to accept the risk of another storm for next year. Not my favorite.
Are we looking at, like, I know down in Naples, they're trucking in some sand and temporarily berming up some areas of the beach. I don't know if we have any particularly vulnerable sections, but is that being looked at all, Linda?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Our engineers are not telling us that's a good idea for us. We can, the three of us can re-ask that question. We don't have huge gaps. I mean, we have lower spots, but we don't have things like that are over at Sanibel.
We don't have any crisis areas.
Yeah, we
Okay.
don't have crisis areas here unless somebody knows of one, in which case, please tell us.
And quite frankly, if the Corps is right, and I don't think they're right, because I think the majority of the sand went up over the berms and ended up being waste material in the long run. But if they are right, and there's a considerable amount of sand within the water's edge, then a couple of tides and some seasonal changes that will come back.
Yeah.
It always has, always will. So we're going to keep pushing, and at the same time, I think we're going to get some beaches back. But you know, from a mobilization perspective and just getting anything done, there's no way we can have anything nourished by this season.
Okay, well, I guess maybe we should just all cool our heels about getting concerned, about the beach restoration is, I think one thing I just need to clarify for the audience who may not understand who all the players are, how they fit in, but Bob Walter and Linda Laird, in addition to being members of the Captiva Community Panel, are also CEPD commissioners on the beach project. So that's why you're hearing, audience, a lot of discussion from Bob Walter and Linda Laird about this, in addition to David Munn. So just wanted to clarify that for folks.
Daniel, there's a question from the audience. When will parking fees be put into effect at the beach lot?
Parking fees are back in place currently. And I just wanted to finish my thought also. I believe the question from David was in terms of the funding portion of it, and that would only, to my understanding, affect the FEMA or Army Corps funding. I don't believe that's going to affect the 13 million. It won't affect the appropriations request, and I don't believe it's going to affect the amount that we've requested from the county.
Okay, Jay, this is Ken. Daniel, the invoice that was sent out from the district, and I think I'm speaking for other residents too. In fact, I know I am. I paid that invoice on 12/2/22. I filled out the appropriate forms. Last week, I called the Lee County tax collector's office and said, "What's the process now? It's been 3 months." And they didn't have slightest idea what I was talking about. I finally got to a fairly high supervisor who was stumped for a while, but she said, "Oh, you've got to call the preventive district," and gave me the telephone number. This is a week ago. So I called, got a voicemail, left word, no answer, which I think is very poor on the district's part. And I still don't know what the process is, and a lot of the citizens here do not understand what's going on.
You're talking about, you're saying that you paid your, there was a beach assessment on the tax bill.
I paid the invoice.
Paid that. And then
and I paid the
you also paid CEPD, so you double paid.
I double paid, which I knew I was going to have
How
to.
do I get my refund?
Yes, and I received some other calls on this same point. So I think there's some lack of communication in the district.
So this was something that, quite frankly, should have been put to bed by now. This is March. These have been issued for quite a while. We submitted, so how the process is supposed to work when we sent this out, if you had paid the district that line item for the beach nourishment in full, then an amendment to your tax bill was submitted on your behalf to the tax collector, in which case they should, the tax collector should have initiated a refund process from their end for that double payment. If you've not received that, and honestly, I haven't seen a voicemail, but we can reach out offline specific to your case to ensure that this amendment to your tax bill was submitted on your behalf, and we can work to remedy that. And that goes for, I guess, anybody else in the audience who's listening who's had that same issue. I would ask, please submit
There are
these.
some, Daniel, there are some other folks out there, which is why I'm bringing it up in the committee meeting. And it concerns me that the telephone call wasn't returned.
Daniel, we've experienced the same thing at the Rauschenberg Foundation. We paid $250,000 at the end of the year, and then we got a bill for additional funds that supposedly we're supposed to get a refund, not pay more money. And I've been calling and calling and calling, and I'm not getting anywhere.
I do know that John Rieger has had many discussions with you regarding this, so
But I haven't heard from him for weeks.
okay. Well, I will ask if you are having issues, rather than airing each individual one out in this community panel meeting, please email me at dmunt, dmunt@mycepd.com, and I will work to sort these issues.
Ken, can you make that available to everyone, please?
Yes.
Okay, but as I remember, the process was the county was supposed to issue us refunds on our taxes for the double payment. You provided them a list of people who had double paid, and the county was supposed to issue us refund checks.
That's correct. We issued
That's what happened in my case.
We issued an amendment to each individual person that we received the funding from their. We issued an amendment to their tax bill.
The system was in place. Now, obviously, some people fell through the cracks, what I'm hearing right now. So if everybody could email Daniel exactly your name and your address. Daniel, I mean, he's got to look up individually, because I know a number of people that work perfectly fine for us. So I don't know what happened in these instances.
Yeah, I mean, I got my refund, so I don't know. But it looks like this has happened with multiple people.
And the phone, I don't have an answer for. Daniel, you and I'll circle back and we can discuss that.
Okay, so the net on this is anybody who has not yet received a tax refund should call Daniel or email Daniel, and he will try to run down what's happened to people's refunds with the county. Is that the net of it?
Yes, if you've had a double payment for the beach nourishment line item, send me your contact information, your address, so that I can look up specifically, because we have to file these amendments individually to the properties. So if you can send me that information, we'll work to get that sorted and assist you.
Okay. Ken, would you let me know the outcome of this, so that we can put something out to the community when we have this resolved? So if the case there are other people in the community that aren't on this call that have not yet received a tax refund, we can tell people what to do.
Which Ken are you talking about too, Jay?
I guess you can.
Oh, okay. I will do that.
Okay. All right. I have one question. Daniel, what about all the dead fish on the beach? What's going to happen with these?
The county is closely monitoring the dead fish from red tide. Once it reaches a level, a threshold that they believe would warrant a raking, they have the permits in place to rake those.
Okay, so this is a county job to rake these dead fish?
Correct.
Yes.
Well, I'm getting calls from people that say it's well beyond time for the county to be doing this raking. So
Yeah, this has come up before. There was a dead turtle on the beach that was there, my understanding,
8
between
of them.
Agric for a very, very long time. And there's a lot of dead fish due to the red tide. And I guess I would ask CEPD if there's some way you guys can subcontract or contract with the county to take more direct responsibility for this. I don't know how that would affect your staffing, et cetera. But if we can have this done locally as opposed to from the county on a regular basis, I think that would be terrific, because it takes a very long time for the county to get out here.
I can reach out to Jesse again after this meeting. I'm actually out the door on my way up to the parking lot right after this, so I'll be there firsthand to call him.
Yeah, I'm not just asking for this particular instance. I'm looking for some
Understand,
long-term relationship so that you guys can take control of it.
understand.
Yeah, I think that's a interesting idea. I think it's a good idea if we can do it, and we might be able to figure out ways to share staffing with our parking lot people and things like that. We may need more equipment that obviously Daniel will have to figure out how to manage it.
Okay. Anything else for CEPD?
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, let's then move on to Bob Walter. Do you have any update from South Seas for us? Anything that?
Jay, you got SCCF right before that.
Yes, I understand that, but I don't want to get into the SCCF presentation and then have Kevin sign on. So I'm trying to find short items to fill until
Okay,
Kevin comes on.
okay.
So you're back to me, Jay?
Not
Yes,
sure this
Bob.
is a short, I'm not sure this is a short item.
I'm not sure this is a short item either.
Yeah, I think you should do SCCF, Jay.
Yeah, my update will probably be about 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So you're doing the SCCF, Carrie?
I am.
Okay, well, let's go to SCCF then. Thank you.
Okay. So Matt, I know you had Matt DePaulus, our policy director, last week. He
Yes.
has a new nephew, so he wasn't able to make it today. He's visiting the new nephew. But there's a couple items he wanted me to mention to everybody. So first, just a brief update in terms of water quality and red tide expectations. So I even just looked at the report this morning. In most places around our immediate area and throughout the county, we're seeing, low to background concentrations of red tide organisms. It's high only in a couple places in the county. Collier County and Sarasota, they're having some issues. So right now, while red tide is a bit lower, the one sort of cautionary piece to this is we may expect it to increase a bit in future weeks. And part of that is because with Lake Okeechobee, they still need to do controlled releases for a while to get the lake levels down. They want to do that ahead of the rainy season. So we should expect to see some continued releases, which of course, comes with some nutrient enrichment when that happens. Matt did stress to me that they are starting to do releases in the St. Lucie estuary. So we're starting to see some sort of shared burden of those releases across other areas. And then they're sort of keeping an eye on the Army Corps' game plan, and hoping the Corps can also see some of those releases go to some other areas as well. Then the second piece is just a quick note about the legislative session.
Sorry, Carrie, before you move on to
Yeah.
that, on the red tide, how are you all characterizing the current level of red tide around Captiva right now?
So I
I'd
looked
say
at
about a week ago, it was terrible.
I looked at the counts this morning. So the counts this morning would have been taken on the 10th. So earlier this week. And the only area that I saw that were high around Captiva was there was medium levels around Redfish Pass.
Okay.
And there was medium levels around Buck Key. Everything else around Sanibel and Captiva is low right now.
Okay, so then that being that Buck Key is right out my back door is why it smells pretty
Ye-
bad around my house.
Probably so. I mean, I don't know exactly where their sampling location is, but that was one of the 2 areas immediately around us that are at medium. So that may be why you were experiencing that.
Well,
Okay,
I will tell you that if you're on the bay side, one of the problems on that side is the dead fish you can get in the mangroves, and they just don't get their way out with tidal flow. And that's part of the problem on that side.
Yeah, it's a mixture between, the difference between aerosolized Karenia, which is that organism that causes it, and the sort of irritation it causes. And then there is also that dead fish smell that just happens because there's still the residual dead fish everywhere too. But
And I saw a dead dolphin over on Buck Key, and a dead manatee is at the yacht club, and hopefully they've taken them away.
yeah, that's very unfortunate. Yeah, so I think this is mostly to say that we shouldn't assume we won't have some kick up of red tide in the coming weeks. That is just with everything happening there.
So in the SCCF report, I read it and it says, okay, we're releasing it. It's within the envelope.
Uh-huh.
It says it's within the envelope. I read that means everything's okay, showing my lack of knowledge of what's going on. And so your educated comments about what we should expect to see, perhaps in the water quality report, commentary might be good for some of us who don't understand.
Sure. Yeah, because what that flow envelope really means is like the speed of water coming out as it's being released, and how that impacts things like seagrass and some of those other things. So that doesn't necessarily cover the nutrient load that's associated with those flows. But I'll pass along that remark.
Yeah, because I keep thinking, oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, I will certainly.
There was a question from the audience, kind of in the
Okay.
same vein. Is there a reason why there are not more releases to the East Coast, since they do not have the same issues with red tide?
That I'm going to have to leave that up to Matt. I am not as intimately familiar with exactly how that continues to be negotiated. I know with, the LOSUM application of the new LOSUM plan that should, hopefully adjust some of those releases, but I am not as close to this as Matt is. So you can certainly share my email or Matt's email, and we can follow up with that question after, but I unfortunately don't have I personally don't have the best answer for exactly what those dynamics are for those choices.
Well, and one of the things that came up in previous discussions was that the St. Lucie estuary has other issues that made them wish they would have red tide sometimes. They've had a lot of other problems with the releases. We happen to get red tide, they get lesions on their fish and blue-green algae. So it's.
Yeah, and that issue of equity between releases is really at the core of some of what that work has been around the application of LOSUM. But in terms of what's happening directly right now, I think I'd have to defer that to Matt. Is it okay if I move on just very quickly to the legislative piece? Okay. Just to let you know, so we continue to track a number of bills this session. There are certainly ones that are of concern to us. I think I'm just going to make it really brief by saying, we'll continue to keep everybody updated. We have our legislative tracker that we will update frequently to let you know how those bills are progressing and if they are getting any traction. One important example, I think, of one of the types of bills that concern us this particular session is an example of HB 1197. Its counterpart, it has an identical Senate counter companion bill, which is SB 1240. And what that bill does is it essentially preempts county and municipality rules related to water quality, quantity, pollution control, and wetlands protection. And essentially the concern there is that it essentially will take away the ability for more localized rules around managing those aspects of water quality and wetland control, and hand that over to the state. There also is a lot of question about what that means about pre-existing rules. So, for example, if we think about, anything that we'd be trying to do at the county level or already exists for Sanibel for controlling how fertilizer is applied and how that affects our water quality. If a bill like this were to go through, that could take away our ability to, to put those rules in place at a more localized level that works for us. So that's something we're following very closely to see how it progresses. And obviously if it gets traction, we will certainly be taking action on that. But otherwise, I think it's just to mention that we will be keeping track and updating everybody as we progress through this legislative session. And that's all I have.
Okay. David, I've got an agenda item here, additional updates from you on Roosevelt Channel slow speed zone. I'm not sure all of what this encompasses, so I'll just let you have the floor for a minute.
Jay,
Yeah.
I think that Kevin Ruane is here.
Oh, okay.
I believe he's on the, he's on the phone.
All right.
I'm here. I don't know if you can see me. I'm sitting in my doctor's parking lot. Sorry.
Okay. Well, Kevin, welcome to our meeting. We very much appreciate, having you, when your schedule permits, be able to give us an update on what's going on at the county from your point of view and the important things that you're working on. So we appreciate whatever comments you have for us this morning. So the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate it. We are continue to be consistent, going to Tallahassee on a bi-monthly basis to make sure we're advocating for the things we need. That's really what we're doing. I did hear the gal from SCCF. We're tracking that bill. There's a lot of grandfathering language in that bill. I will certainly be up next week talking to some of the members relative to what the intent is. Our lobbyists are certainly going through that. And although there's some language in the bill that is concerning, there's a lot of grandfather opportunities. So we'll get more behind the intent. We'll have the opportunity to actually meet with the writer or the sponsor of the bill to understand what the intent was. It's always better to do that, in that regard. HUD is coming down here tomorrow, and I think that's really important. Federal HUD is coming down. We're going to meet and do a tour of Fort Myers Beach. So a lot of the grant monies are starting to come to a head, which is good for Lee County, as we're advocating for not only community block grants, but HUD dollars are really important with the housing shortage that we have. So we'll have a pretty good indication of what that looks like. Session started obviously the 7th, which was just last week. And it's really been a busy first couple of days. They're more ceremonial than anything else. Bills are really starting to just move through both the House and the Senate in the subcommittees. The one thing I always caution people about is, there's thousands of bills that are actually filed. There's only hundreds that actually get passed. So let's just always be concerned about, what level of bill will pass. Anything that obviously is a concern, we're doing a good job tracking them. We have full-time lobbyists up there, as well as Dan DeLisi, who is up there, on our behalf, and many other, not only City of Sanibel, Cape Coral, making sure we're on the same page. But next week is probably going to be a week with many more updates, which will have an indication of, as they go through subcommittees and they actually start to go towards appropriations, we'll get a feel for what dollars and cents will actually be coming together. Right now, it's going through the normal committees, which are good. But appropriations is really the separation. It's where money is actually allocated and or, starting to be voted upon. So that's what we're looking forward to in that regard. But the county has certainly been very much engaged. We plan on going to Washington in May. Our
Kevin,
strategy.
before you move on to that, just so that everybody understands, Lee County has identified numerous funding needs that it needs that result from the hurricane. And so what you're talking about is, you're trying to get all these funding needs that you have listed to try to get all these items funded during this session of the legislature. Am I summarizing this correctly?
Correct. So I'll give you an indication. So we have $1.4 billion in waterway, septic, water connections, because every one of our water systems breached. We have over $600 million in bridges. Our match is $75 million. We have an additional $70 million just for street signs and traffic lights. So as we start to go through the different aspects, we have beach erosion at $75 million. There's a laundry list. Yes, Jay, that's a laundry list of what we put in for. And our job obviously is to try to have some funding for it. Most of these projects are multi-year projects. So we recognize that we're not going to do them in 1 year. The best part that you try to have is if there's any initial planning and design and or construction, you try to have them commit to that. Once they commit, then there's an annual funding that generally takes place, and that's generally what we try to take place and advocate for. So yes, sorry, I move at my speed and I don't realize that everybody isn't up to date reading the things I am. The ask within Lee County are in the billions.
Right.
And that's really what we're trying to advocate for. And just to try to make sure we've been a frequent flyer up there so they understand exactly how important the rebuild is. We did kick off the task force. It met for the first time. The branches actually are now starting to meet. The task force.
Now this you're talking about your resiliently program that you're chairing for the county.
Correct.
Right.
So Lee County put together a resilient Lee task force that represents the entire county as a globe. Okay, regional Lee County. The legislators have asked that we put our ask in as a result of a county. So when I got to testify, I testified with Charlotte County, Collier County, Lee County, Volusia County, and Flagler County. So what they're asking to make it easier from just an economy, from an efficiency point of view, that you submit your ask for the county as a whole. So we put together a task force that has representation from all governments within Lee County. And then within that task force, we then have branches. And inside the branches, think of a human being, it's really the arteries that make up the community. It's housing, it's infrastructure, it's building, it's planning, it's economic recovery, it's natural resources, it's cultural resources. And the beauty of what we're trying to do with the branches is to continue to talk about emerging issues, to continue to talk about things that are coming up. Most of these grants come from all different forms of government, whether it's the federal government or the state government, within commerce, within interior, within different DEP. So there's different subsections within that administration or that branch of government where you're trying to actually advocate for them. The branch is going to be listening and actually gathering meetings for the public to be engaged. So we understand what your needs are. Right. There's been some real needs that have been identified. We're trying to identify those as quickly as possible. This, has actually gone from the stage of, getting rid of mostly debris to now recovery. And we're in full recovery mode. So I'm in that 6th gear already. I do apologize, but what we're trying to do is just make sure every opportunity there is for funding, we're securing that, we're hunting that down, we're making sure the applications are filed. We're trying to do everything we possibly can. So like tomorrow, I'm sorry, the head of HUD is coming down here. It's essential that we take her through some of the most, decimated areas. They have a true understanding, looking at it grounds, with eyes on the ground to appreciate what the ask might potentially be. This is just an everyday life of what my week from week to go, takes place. As you identify the various people that come on down here, we try to respond to it as quickly as we can. So really right now we're in the recovery stage of this, and everything about this is to try to advocate to both the state and the federal government for recovery dollars for Lee County. At the end of the day, the recovery dollars that we talk about, we're asking them to make an investment in our community. So the investment obviously makes the most sense for our community. And we honestly believe that their investment will be a very good investment that will return obviously many forms of revenue as we start to get back on our feet.
Right. Okay, good.
So, that's really where we are. My updates going forward will really be about specific dollars as they get appropriated. The governor was very good about having a couple of special sessions there was money set aside, so we don't have to wait for the session, so to speak. Those monies were allocated, whether that was money for beach renourishment, whether that was money for tax rebates, whether that was money for revenue replacement for the municipalities. Once the governor sets it aside, you don't have to necessarily worry about it going through the legislator. They'll adopt it. He basically is giving them the heads up on what he wants. On the flip side, the president's budget, actually, you start to see some indications of, different aspects of his budget is coming out. We anticipate the president's budget in its full force to be out in April. We anticipate to go up to the federal government in May. That's when we'll start our avocation. Once the actual budget is put together, it'll allow us the opportunity to see what's in the budget, what opportunities are there as well. So as Tallahassee ends in the end of April, the beginning of May, then we'll actually just shift gears and go into the federal government for that aspect of recovery.
Right, okay.
But that's my quick and very quick update. I apologize that I move at a pace that I don't realize that most people aren't in the meetings I am, so I have to slow down.
Yeah, well, that's completely understandable. Kevin, I'm just, yeah, you're working on these items every hour of your every waking hour. So a lot of times, the people that you're addressing don't understand everything that you're talking about because we don't live with it every day like you do. But I think the important thing for people to understand is that you're running, the way I look at it, point for Lee County to get all the funding we need to recover from this hurricane and to make Lee County more resilient in the future. And you've established this huge task force to accomplish getting all this funding, to get all our needs. It's your leading effort.
That's exactly the intent. That was the intent from day one. And honestly, I just think as a big team working together collectively, collaboratively is really the most important thing we can do to achieve the funding that's necessary. And just convincing the legislators that the investment, as most of us coming from the business world, this is an investment and it's a worthwhile investment. That's really what we try to advocate for.
Okay.
Right. And I think what's important to understand is that the Board of County Commissioners for Lee County has appointed Commissioner Ruane as the chair of the Resilience Recovery Task Force for all of Lee County, which is why he's commuting to Tallahassee every week virtually to make sure that this process gets completed. The other thing, Commissioner Ruane, you should just know that there were 95 people on this call listening to your report.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And the other thing that I would say to people is, as things come up, we represent you, the community. I don't know them because I am so ingrained right now in this, trying to obtain funding. We just need to understand the needs of the community as they come out. That's why we're looking for the branches. Feel free to look at our website, Resiliently. We have a lot of bandwidth. We have many of our community leaders that are participating, that are chairs and co-chairs. Sandy's obviously a co-chair of planning, and as we go through this aspect, so feel free to be engaged. The website allows you to put in any type of information, questions you might need or have, because we want to understand what the needs of the community. This is your rebuild. I'm just the advocate to allow and have that opportunity to let the legislators know why Lee County is so important.
Right.
Thank you, Kevin. And I wanted to add something because part of our whole group is that on March the 30th, they want all around Lee County different meetings that are going to be going on, and they're actually to ask questions of people and residents. And so then we on the committee can take notes, and we'll have people there. And so since I'm co-chairing the Planning and Capacity Committee, that's with Sid Kitson, and David Mintz is actually on our committee, so that's interesting. We got two from Captiva, but on the same date, March 30th, they want meetings all around going on, and I know that Lee Health is going to have some. So I was kind of hoping that we could have one on Captiva, maybe at the Civic Center or one of the resorts have a room open. I would open my doors if I had any doors to open, but I'd be glad to do that. So maybe we can find a spot if that works and invite the general public for any needs, etc. because we're looking for long-range visioning. There's a lot of planning that needs, but we also want to have, be able to listen to every people, what they would have to say and their concerns.
Yeah, Sandy, I spoke to, actually, I spoke to Lisa about this morning. And if you want to contact her or Emily about the CCA, there is a recognition that on March 30th throughout the county and through other counties, there's going to be sort of this open forum for people to have input. It's called tables.
Yeah, it's this one right here.
Yeah, it's going to be on the table. So that maybe with you and Ken Gerdeham and the CCA, we can figure out how we can reach out to people on Captiva who would like to have some input into this process. So after this meeting, maybe we can have some discussion about it.
Okay, so David, you and Sandy will put that together and.
Well, I'll talk to Sandy and we'll talk to the CCA and see if there's a way we can advertise this to people on Captiva so they have an opportunity. My understanding is that the people who are working with the Resilient Recovery Task Force, Resiliently, are going to be taking a lot of the comments from all the various tables that are taking place around the county and putting those comments together so that members of the branches and the task force can see what people in the community are feeling are the important needs and the priorities. So this is going to be information that's going to be collected and then presented to the task force. So it'd be useful if people have the time and the energy to come out and just talk about what their major concerns are. So we'll see if we can get that out by the 30th, right, so that people can come on the 30th.
Okay, very good.
We'll find a place for it.
Thank you, Kevin.
No problem. My pleasure, Sandy. I think you did a great job of explaining really the intent of what we're trying to do. And really, most of these grants require public engagement. We want to have, so this concept on the 30th on the table, it's, think of it in the literal sense. What is on the table? What do we need to think about? What do we need to talk about? Most grants need listening. Most grants need, public input. Most grants need analyzation. So this concept of on the table is going to be this universal thing that will take place on March 30th. And it's subgroups throughout the community. I was asked to go down to South Fort Myers on a housing, discussion with 30 people. So as we, not only within your branch, but in the sub branches where the communities are actually talking and engaging, it's really important that they do get together and then they filter the conversation and or the concerns up to the branch. That's what's really important about this, because so many of these grants and funding opportunities, require that public engagement. But more importantly, I just want the public to understand this is your rebuild. This is what you'd like this community to be. I mean, that's really that's why we want so much public engagement, because we really want to understand what you'd like Lee County to look like in the future.
Okay, other questions or comments for Kevin from the panel, and then we'll open it to the audience. Ken, does the audience have any?
There was one question, or just asking the commissioner if he had any comments about the current red tide crisis and the county's response.
The current red tide is certainly unfortunate. I don't know. I mean, we've certainly had conversations about, we've done everything we can to clean it up. Unfortunately, Ian had such catastrophic events to our natural systems. What was out in the waterways, unfortunately, certainly gasoline and oil, didn't help this whatsoever. Red tide is a phenomenon that goes on. But if you think of red tide, when you fuel it with nitrogen or phosphate, it's like lighting a fire with gasoline. And unfortunately, it's not uncommon after storms, but a storm of this magnitude, the red tide, there's nothing really that we can do whatsoever. It is certainly the collateral damage and significant collateral damage as a result of, still having, literally hundreds of vehicles and or vessels still in, the waterways, and all their fuel, unfortunately, is in the waterways. That nitrogen certainly has not done anything other than fueled the red tide. Red tide is the phenomenon, but when you add nitrogen or phosphate to it, unfortunately, it just makes it that much worse. I don't have any solution. I'm just being candid with everybody based on what we went through with a result of Ian. Ian definitely has caused more havoc to the red tide than we could imagine. I think the severity of it is really a byproduct of, what we received from Ian. It's unfortunate, but we don't have a solution at all.
Okay, other questions or comments for Kevin? Well, Kevin, thanks for taking time out from your busy schedule to give us an update. And we very much appreciate that when your schedule permits that you're going to want to attend each of our monthly panel meetings to give us a quick update on what you're working on for the behalf of all your constituents here in Lake County. We much appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity, Jay. And obviously my office is always available, 533-2224. Pamela Smith is my assistant. As things come up, if you think of something, you want to send an email, I encourage you to do so. We're trying to understand exactly what situations you might have, as unique as they might be. Please feel free to contact my office. Thank you.
Okay.
You all have a great day.
Thanks, Kevin.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. We've been kind of jumping around our agenda. Let me see if I can get myself reoriented as to where we are. I guess the next place to go is the HOA.
No, South Seas update.
South Seas update, and then the comments from the HOA on the proposed bottleneck bay at South Seas. So Bob, have a.
Thank you, Jay. South Seas update. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. On Friday, we issued an update of what our planned openings were. We opened Starbucks on February 28th, which has been very successful, busy every day. Planned future openings as of Friday. Our main marina, the Yacht Harbor Marina, we're looking at late April to open that up. We still have some electrical and plumbing issues that we need to take care of. In mid-May, we're looking at providing food truck service to the main beach area, since we have no food and beverage operation out there right now. Early summer of 23, CPC will open. We anticipated, I think I've told everybody here that we anticipated that shortly opening right after Starbucks, but once we got in there to do some cleaning and restoration, we had larger damage areas in the walls, the exterior walls than we thought, so we ended up doing a full gut there. So it's going to be early summer 23 before CPC opens back up. Late summer of 23, the T-Dock, which will go forward as the Bayview Fishing Pier. Construction begins March 30th, and that's a go, and it should be ready to go by late summer of 23. South Seas Vacation Rentals, which are our third-party rentals. Most of the HOAs feel that their units are going to be up and running by June, July. So we anticipate getting our rental units back in order on or about the same time. Bayview North Pool, including the slide pool and the Tarpon Bar, i.e. Tiki Bar, will open late summer of 23. And Club Captiva Beach, which is Sunset Beach, will be open for operations in late summer of 23. November, our golf course, our newly designed family-friendly golf course, excuse me, will be open in probably late November. We want it open by Thanksgiving, but we're anticipating the third week latest, hopefully, of November. It's under construction now. Late 23, Harborside Bar and Grill. Late 23, we'll also repurposed and redesigned Redfish Grill, which was the Point Restaurant. And then early 2024, Bayview Pavilion and Event Lawn, which is next to the Harborside Hotel. We'll have a temporary pavilion up there as we had in the past. It's not our long-term, that's not our long-term plan, but we will have a pavilion up and an event lawn moving by early 24. And Q1 of 24, we're looking at our Harborside Hotel guest rooms and suites opening back up. Revetment work has begun along Redfish Path. Let me show you. Can I give, oops, sorry. Sorry, I had a picture of Redfish Pass and I can't find it now. So let me just go on to the next topic, which is Captiva Landing. Last week, we released our plans for our water feature on the south end called Captiva Landing. Exclusive to the South Seas, guests and Club Captiva members, Captiva Landing is our new amenity complex located on the southern end of our resort, adjacent to South Seas Village, and will feature Gulfstream, Lazy River, Captiva Kids Club, Bottlenose Bay, play area for kids of all ages, the Cove, an impressive resort pool that provides oasis of relaxation, Flippers Arcade and casual restaurant, and Bayside Marina, improved South Marina. We're looking at doing revamping that marina, doing eco tours out of there on a regular basis, and also opening up some of the mangroves in there from an educational perspective and doing some wooden walkways through the mangroves and literally revitalizing the Bayside Marina, coinciding with Captiva Landing. Here's a picture of Captiva Landing. We are still in the planning stages of this. This is the latest rendering that we do have. And to get your bearings straight, if you're coming in the resort, at the bottom of the screen, if you can follow my cursor, that's
Yes.
South Seas Plantation Road. And right here would be the four-way stop. And you go this way going north, you go right to the Bayside Marina, and Bottlenose Bay, which is the subject of conversation, is sitting literally on the farthest northwest corner of the lot. This whole area here was our reception area before. This is the large pool we spoke of. If you want to come up to the top of the screen, Tennis Villas is about right here, along this stretch right there.
Okay.
So Bob, this is north of the entrance. This isn't like where the Dock Fords was.
If you come through our main gate,
Where's
Yeah.
the point? Where's the main gate on here?
it would be, if you look at the logo chair, it'd be to the right of that. Again, if you remember where our front desk was, you would come in our main gate and go to the front desk like right here.
Okay.
So this
Where was
bottlenose,
Dock Fords on here?
it's way up here to the right. If this was
Wait.
Tennis Villas right here, Dock Fords would be another 200 yards to the right that way.
Okay.
Now, we released this last week. We had a president's call last Wednesday, and we had some good, healthy conversation. Again, we don't have any good renderings. Like, this is the best rendering we have. We've committed to go back and doing a 3D rendering to give people a real feel of what it's like to walk through here. But I will tell you, some of the concerns were that Bottlenose Bay looked a little, plastic. The colors were off. Maybe it was a little hokey. But let's remind everyone that this is an area for kids of all ages. I mean, our goal here is to have a fun place for the entire family to come to and spend the day. There are a couple of issues within South Seas. One of our biggest complaints that we have is everything is on the north end. And along the same lines, there's nothing for my kids to do in the afternoon and the evening, and there's nothing for kids of all ages. The main pool complex in the north end is constantly inundated, and I can't get a chair and that sort of thing. And exacerbating those problems, and we said this on many calls, but 65% of our rental units are on the south side. So what we plan on doing is putting this amenity down here, which we believe will do several things. One, it will answer the question to what kids and families can do. It gives an alternative on the south end for 65% of our rental units to stay on the south end, quite frankly. And one of the other largest complaints we have that we all know if you're a resident is the traffic up and down. It's just constant traffic up and down. And no matter how many times we pushed for people that stayed on the south end to take the trolley and go north on that end to not take a car up, I stayed there years ago and I still took my car up. People still take their car up. We believe this will reduce traffic on our road from north to south on a daily basis 50%. which I think is a huge issue. We're pretty excited about this. I mean, it's an absolutely gorgeous layout. You can see it's landscaped heavily. I will tell you the highest point on this play area and slide area here, the highest point is 2 inches below the point of the registration building that was there. So that gives you a kind of an idea of the height of the highest point. And at the same time, it will take up considerably less mass than the front desk and reception building. The reception building in and of itself literally took up this entire footprint right here. So this sits in about 20% of that entire lot, just to give you an idea. So we're pretty excited about it. And listen, this is a $20+ million investment. So Jay, that is my presentation. Give everybody an update of where we are.
Okay.
Hey, Bob, it's Bruce McDonald. What you might have covered it in your slides. What is the plan for the space that was formerly occupied by Doc Ford's there?
To be determined. We have considerable damage in that area, quite frankly. And, you know, we're looking at taking it down, and our lenders have said, wait a second, you know, we want to make sure that we don't take it down if we don't have to. So right now we're evaluating whether we're hitting a 50% rollover there, quite frankly.
And will that be take it down and rebuild it, or take it down and have nothing there?
I don't know. We'll rebuild it. We'll rebuild. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, but when we're talking about the Doc Ford's area, that's where all the meeting rooms were and so forth, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so all those meeting rooms and so forth are continue to be unusable for the foreseeable future, Bob? Or
that is correct, Jay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that roof, especially over the conference center, every roof we had, which every HOA had a major problem with the roof as well, but every roof we had considerable lift in it, and the one over the conference center is the one that had the most. So that's what we're evaluating, what the cost is to repair versus replace. And quite frankly, we are getting very close to the 50% rule. So
right,
time will tell.
Okay, other questions for Bob from the audience, Ken?
Oh, there's a number of questions from the audience. Let me just run through them in order, Bob, and so you can answer them. There's 17 of them so far.
Oh.
Will there be jet skis in and out of the Bayside Marina? And what about the manatees? Is what first?
To be determined. We're looking at doing echo jet ski tours out of there, which is the slow, obviously in and out. But quite frankly, you know, where we had it before on the Bayside on the north end, which was one of our by the T-Dock, which, you know, was not ideal for people that stayed in the 1800 building. It was more concerning about the manatees coming in and out of our marina there at that point. So the manatees don't come in and out of our Bayside Marina that much, just due to the draft coming in and out. They do come in, don't get me wrong, but compared to the North Marina, there's a lot less manatees down there. But there will be echo tours, very slowly in and out. And again, jet skis don't have propellers on them. They're inboards.
Bob, just for the record, if I recall, I don't think you can have a commercial jet ski operation going into the Pine Island Sound under the current ordinance for the reasons that have to do with the environment and the manatees, et cetera, et cetera. So all I'm suggesting is before there's any public announcements about that, or you go any further, take a look at that particular Lee County ordinance, because I think there was a large controversy over jet skis in Roosevelt Channel area and on the Bayside. And I think it was resolved that there can't be jet skis rented on the Bayside. So I would just suggest that you take a look at that before there's any further discussion.
Absolutely.
Okay, next question. What about tennis and pickleball courts?
We are looking at options for pickleball courts. There are 20 plus tennis courts around the complex right now, around Southeast in and of itself. We do believe that there is a need for pickleball courts, and we are looking at where we could put them. But right now, no final decisions have been made.
Okay, next question. Is there enough parking?
Enough parking for,
That's all they asked. Is there enough parking?
yes.
Next question, where will the new check-in be?
To be determined. We're probably going to have that in several phases since we're being relocated on multiple occasions as we rebuild. So right now, for those of that are in the know, 6 months ago, I would have told you it was the auger room. Until we got in the auger room and found out the considerable amount of damage. Then we looked at the code rooms and we were like, wait a second, these buildings took damage too. So right now we're targeting, once we start checking, it might be where the old spa was in the interim until we can rebuild.
Okay, next question. What is the percentage of guests with children versus guests without children?
I will tell, and listen, this is an educated guess based on our business, but we do, oddly enough, the summer months are our busiest occupancy months, meaning the higher number of people, and they are all families. Our couples only are usually September, October, January, and up to President's Weekend. And then the other months of the year, it's all families. I will tell you, we'll do 110,000 occupied rooms, and 90,000 of those plus are families, including groups with families.
Next question, what about noise control? I assume that's around the slide.
It will not be operating late. We are designing this in a way where it will be gated off. So we will be able to use the food and beverage facilities in the evening for people to have another option for food and beverage. But the water feature will be gated off. So if you came in to have something to eat, have a burger, that sort of thing, you wouldn't be able to go over there and swimming at night, or at least over to some of the areas. We understand that there could be noise issues, and we're very aware of that, and we're sensitive to it.
Next question, who will be able to use the marina? I assume they mean Bayside.
As in the past, if you're a Captiva club member, you'll have access to the marina. If you have a dock space over there in the future, you can have access to it. I will tell you, as we generate the water feature, traffic coming in and out of the marina, it's to be determined. We might open it up even more. But okay, we're focused on our guests right now and everybody within our gates. So we want to get that right and those experiences right before we start opening up anything else. The marina won't be open to the public, if that's what the question is.
Okay. Number of questions again about parking or comments about parking. So we'll just keep moving through those. And noise. What was the height of the old registration building? Also, where will the parking be for the water park? Back to parking.
Now, let me just get another comment on parking. Again, 65% of our units are on the south end. So you're talking 65% of our units can walk to it. So we're not anticipating a lot of drive traffic to it. And there will be a shuttle drop off right there at the front entrance to the park. What was the other one, Ken? I'm sorry.
Height of the old registration building, the concern about the bottleneck being 35 feet high.
I don't have the exact number. I just was given a document yesterday that had two measurements, and they didn't have it. It just showed the 2 inches below the highest point. But this isn't a residence. I don't think it applies to the 35 feet.
What has been the reaction from Tennis Villas and Bayside?
We've had good and people with concerns. Listen, we personally think that the property values are going to raise. We think that revenues, if you're in our rental program, are going to be considerably better because people didn't want to stay on the south end before. They wanted to stay on the north end where all the action was. So if you're in our rental program, we think that you're going to have considerable success here. I will tell you, last week when we released it, we had about 865 likes, dislikes on our Facebook page, and 85% of them were positive.
Okay, continuing with the comments about noise and parking. What is the permitting situation with the proposed South Seas Water Park?
We're still in the final planning stage of this. We haven't applied for permitting yet.
Okay, are you planning to bring back Ambu Yoga or any of the shops in Chadwick Square?
Yes, eventually. Once we rebuild, we need to bring back all those amenities. We absolutely have to have them back.
Okay, parking. A number of comments. I'll forward the whole group to you afterwards.
Okay.
Let me see if there's anything. We're up to 50 now, so I'm trying to roll down the list and see what I run into. What are the hours of Bottle Bay or Bottlenose Bay?
To be determined. I will tell you, it's probably going to be a lot like the North Pole, which opened at 9:30 in the morning, and usually closed around sunset. We're still looking at the option of whether, you know, in the winter months, whether when it gets dark at 6 o'clock, can you do night swimming till like 7 or 8 o'clock and that sort of thing. But I will tell you, it will not be open past sunset or much later for the swimming aspect. We will be open for dinner and that sort of thing. And listen, you know, one of the reasons is, you know, noise, we get that, but, you know, from a staffing perspective, we just can't staff this after certain hours of the evening as well. It's just impossible.
Okay, a couple questions about will you be allowing day passes?
Not at this time.
Okay, that covers a number of the things that came up. I get about access to the water park from people outside the resort.
If you're outside the resort and you're a Club Captiva member, which is our membership program, you would have access. But other than that, no.
What does the engineering say about the stability of a slide structure in a hurricane?
Well, I'm not the engineer building this, but they build them everywhere, and we will build them to the current codes. I can assure you of that.
Okay, change your pace to the north end. What is the plan for people who like to fish at South Seas? How will the revetment and lack of cart path along Redfish Pass affect fishing?
Along Redfish Pass, along our golf course?
I just read you what they asked. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, that's part of the golf course, and quite frankly, a lot of individuals shouldn't be on our property fishing from there. There will be cart path or walking path of shell going through the new golf course. The revetment work that we're doing right now is going to be pilings with riprap, sort of like what was looked at earlier on the causeway. I had the picture to show you where we were, but we had about 100-foot section of that Redfish Pass where we had pilings from the last storm, and that actually held up extremely well. So we're going to do now, we're going to pay and put in 17 or 1,800 total linear feet of those pilings. But we're going to discourage people fishing from out there.
Okay, a couple of questions about access to Club Captiva amenities, people in the rental program, or will owners be able to purchase a membership for use of the new amenities? And what it costs?
It costs to be determined. Owners in program will have a considerable discount to the amenities. We're still looking at what that number is, but we understand it needs to be a considerable discount. If you're outside of our program and you don't rent with another third party and you wish to purchase a Club Captiva membership, they will be available. Pricing to be determined.
Summer brings a number of guests who tow in their gas-powered Kubotas and carts. Will the resort still allow that to be brought in?
We're discouraging that every chance we get for those reasons.
Next question, please discuss employee housing options.
There are going to be no employee housing options on property. We have apartments off property that we have locked in for long-term. We had probably, I think, 20 plus apartments off property just before the storm. So we're helping with our staff and housing them off property.
I think I've covered most of them that are actually questions and not comments. As I said, I'll provide you a full list of this. Oh, the last one was, will there be a walking path where the old number 6 hole was?
I think we're number 6 with it. Number 6 was on Redfish Path, if I remember correctly, going up to the point. If you're golfing, there will be a walking path, and if you're walking, you'll be, obviously you'll be able to walk along there. But we will design it in a way where golf carts will not be able to go out on the golf course. When I say that, we're going to have natural habitat around entrances where you could walk through with your family and walk around, but you would not be able to take a golf cart down there.
Okay, that's it.
And the golf course in and of itself is designed that way, that it could be a family-friendly walking course. So we're gonna encourage people out there sightseeing and looking around, but not with golf carts.
Okay, well, Bob, I appreciate that update on what's going on at South Seas. Looks like there's a lot of community interest in what's going on there.
As there should be. That's great.
Yeah. Okay, as I understand it, Ken Suarez wants to make comments or discuss issues they have, I guess, with your proposed plans. Do I have that right?
Yes, I can make some general comments.
Yeah, Ken, welcome to our meeting.
Well, thank you for having me. For those of you who don't know who I am, I am representing the 12 condominium and property owners associations. We last year and a half ago, I formed this committee made up of all presidents of the associations, the 12 associations inside the resort, as a way to unify the collective association, since we do not have a master association on property. For some reason, Mariner Group, when they built the property, didn't design it that way. And thus we do have certain challenges that come with 12 associations in a property behind a gate, working with a resort a company as well. So I put together this group. Actually, Bob Walter and I have worked very closely together to keep this group informed. We have meetings every other week. We do meet with Bob and without Bob and the resort, and Timbers does participate in those calls frequently, which we appreciate. Obviously, this issue has become a huge concern to the majority of the owners inside the resort. I would disagree with Bob a little bit that 85%, it might be 85% of other people, but it's certainly not 85% of our ownership inside the resort. From what we're hearing, from what I heard from my own owners I represent at the tennis villas as their president, 60 owners, 52 have commented negatively against the project. Now, I will say that we recognize, and I say we, that the President's Council recognizes the need for a recreational aquatic center down at the south end of the resort. We understand that with the future density and new units that are going to be built on the resort, there's going to be additional guests and owners that are going to occupy the 330 acres behind the gates, and those folks are going to need to be dispersed from north to south end. So we're well aware that there is going to be a need for this type of facility, and we're prepared for seeing such a product that was going to be presented. We were taken by surprise a little bit by the first rendering of the water park, because frankly there was no other information given besides a wet and wild looking type of facility that we really do think that it does not blend in with the ambiance of the island or the resort itself. So we got together and had a very friendly conversation last Wednesday with Bob and CEO Greg Spencer of Timbers, and we discussed our concerns. They did present to us the site plan, the artist rendering of Captiva Landing, which helps us immensely understand where this Bottlenose Bay project is going to be built. And Bob is absolutely correct that it's going to be mostly on the site where the reception center was. What we're trying to digest, and I think I speak for most of our group, is that does it need to be of this magnitude? Do we really need to have multiple, different color slides? And frankly, the North End pool has, of course, satisfied not to the capacity of the situation and volume, but it has satisfied the recreational use of that, and that is not a huge bottlenose bay type of project. So look, we feel that we in the meeting on Wednesday made a lot of headway with Timbers, and we wish to work with them. We know that it's their property; they can design their property the way they want to. But we formed this group, and Bob again has been very instrumental in helping us keep it together to work in conjunction with Timbers as they go along and remodel the inside of the resort, which is greatly needed, and we support that activity. But if a representative from the resort would approach us first and said, "Hey, this is our concept." In fact, we've been asking for that for quite some time now. We probably would have spared a lot of this angst going on right now. Yeah. that we're seeing. It doesn't do any of us any good for this type of vitriol to be spread all over social media, and we'd like to control that, because frankly, it's not going to help us in the future. But we want to be a partner with Timbers to be able to help get the information out there that's pertinent, that will help them get these things through without Facebook and Twitter going crazy over this thing. So some of the huge concerns are additional recreation facilities like pickleball courts and tennis courts, as you can see with the questions that were asked, and parking, of course, for actually all the associations in the South End. Obviously, there is going to be people from the North End come to visit, and we can see people in the Tennisville's Bayside and Beachvilles. We can see guests from the North End coming in to park down at the South End. Bob and the group discussed this issue at length about, 6-8 months ago. I think it was before the hurricane, Bob. And we talked about coming up with a color-coded parking pass situation, or some kind of identification for cars that the guests will have on it, so we know, who's if they're allowed to park, at the Tennisvilles or Bayside, and so that we can understand those issues as well. So we feel that after our meeting on Wednesday, our dialogue with them is going to be open. I think that the message that was presented to Greg and group by the 12 presidents was well received. And I honestly think that the next rendering is we hope it will be toned down a little bit. There was a big discussion about the colors that were being used, and they had promised to go to more earth tones, blend into the landscape environment, and certainly, as everybody knows, on Captiva and Hurricane Ian showed this one, with vegetation, you can hide anything. And so, we think if this Captiva landing is done the right way, and if it blends in, and we can tone down some of this ostentatious look of a water park, I think it could be well received.
Right. I think I understand. I don't live in South Sea, so I'm not really aware of the level of controversy that was ongoing the past week or two, I guess. But I guess, as I understand it, you all perceive something that looks like an amusement park.
Well, if I can interject, yeah. Listen, if I can interject here, and I said this on the call that they had the other day. One of our things that we want to do is we want to control our social media, because we've released conversations, we've released things internally, and all of a sudden other people are putting on their social media, and we're like, listen, we got to get ahead of that. And trying to solve that problem, we were guilty as hell by putting out a rendering that wasn't really ready to go out yet.
Yeah.
And that rendering was actually going to be a link in another letter that was going to owners, and of which I was working on for restoration and furniture and FF&E needs. I I wanted to do a link on the core designs in that letter to link that, and then something about our amenities, because everybody keeps asking about the amenities. So at the time, quite frankly, that's the only thing we had. And the rendering that went out, I received 2 days before that. We had a call a week before that. I never mentioned to the presidents. So when this release came out, it was blindsided to them. Guilty as charged. I should have picked up the phone. And the rendering itself, frankly, was not a good one. And that's why we went back. And the one that I showed all of you, we just literally did 3 days over the weekend and into Monday. So like I said, we're still in the planning stages. We left our meeting on Wednesday. And one of the things that we want to get out there now is a kind of a 3D walking tour of this entire complex, Captiva Landing. So as you're coming through the gates, what you would expect, what you would see, how it would look, everything else. Because not everybody is as visual to look down from a watercolor rendering and go, oh, I get it. Look at all the palm trees. It's going to be pretty. That's all talked over to the side. But I still don't understand. So we've made a commitment that we're going to work on that as soon as possible.
Okay, yeah, well, I think I understand what happened, and I guess I would summarize the feedback you're getting is people are just saying, please make it look like Captiva.
Yeah, that's exactly what, and I think that's a very fair request. And I think that that message came across pretty well and received well after a bit on our call on Wednesday. Obviously there's going to be some major change inside the resort, and there's going to be a lot of things people aren't going to like, and we recognize that. But there is some need. There's a great need for the resort to be improved. I think it has been a redheaded stepchild for far too long. I think what is worrying our group, our President's Council, is with this situation that came up, is we almost felt flashbacks to Blackstone, where Blackstone didn't really care what we thought. And they just were going to do what they were going to do and be damned with it. And I have really been trying hard, and Bob can admit to this, that the unity of the 12 presidents, along with the new ownership of the resort, we wanted to bring some symbiotic relationship there so that we can get information out to our owners. We are obviously the best advocates. We are the best way to get the information, if it's given properly to us, to our owners, instead of it being perpetuated on social media. And so that's what our goals are.
Yeah, well, that makes sense to me. I think I can understand, what's happening and how it did happen. But it sounds to me, Ken, like you and Bob have a working relationship.
Oh,
And,
yeah. I mean, we go back far.
Yeah, right.
Most of them are good. No, I'm kidding. No, we talk to each other regularly, weekends, nights.
Okay, well, is there anything further that the panel can do on this matter, or a role we can, play in the future to, help communication between property owners and, well, Tim?
Jay, I would tell you that it was brought up on a number of occasions. The owners within inside the resort do want to know what the owners outside the resort think as well. Right. And that would be great to add in some of the communications coming from you guys, of course.
Yes. Well, for Captiva that's outside of the resort, that's not irrelevant to us either.
Excuse me, it's not what?
It's not irrelevant to us what goes on.
Correct. Correct. I agree with you. And
South Seas is kind of the anchor of Captiva, and what goes on in Captiva or in the resort becomes the image of Captiva and affects, our enjoyment of our, of our community, as well.
Well,
So,
frankly, a lot of owners started at South Seas who now own Captiva,
Absolutely.
and there's a
that's how most
tremendous
people
amount of commerce.
got introduced to Captiva in the first place, myself.
That's right.
included, Back
Sure.
in the 90s. That's
And
how
the commerce part of it for the resort is obviously huge, but not only that, but from what I understand, and Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Captiva owners are going to be able to have an opportunity to buy a membership into the resort to enjoy the amenities. Is
Right.
that the case, Bob?
I think, yes, absolutely. Down the road, once we stabilize and everything else we've discussed.
Oh, I thought that was a
memberships
given, Bob. I thought that Captiva residents could become Captiva Club members.
No, I'm sorry, Captiva, absolutely.
Yeah.
When you said that, my brain went Fort Myers and everything else.
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that, look, this is going to be a very complicated process that's long overdue. And I think that there's going to be missteps. And there's always missteps. It's inevitable, and we shouldn't put too much weight on them. And I think we should assume that we'll all learn from them and it will move forward and it's going to be productive. I have a sense from what Bob Walter said is that keeping South Seas within the vision of Captiva is a priority, and it's clearly understood. And I think they're going to follow that road. But Bob, just as I think it's important for South Seas to have a very close working relationship with the associations, I think going forward, I think it would be helpful if South Seas also understood that it has to have a close working relationship with the panel, because the panel is the community outside of South Seas, as well as it is our view that we represent as a panel the community within South Seas. We represent all the property owners on Captiva, South Seas, within and without South Seas. And so I think to the extent that you work closely with the associations, we would ask that you work closely with the panel so that we as a panelist and a community aren't blindsided by things and then have to undo things later on. It's much better to sort of work together before things are finalized so that we can come to a consensus on how things go forward.
Understood and agree.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I would say, Bob, the only interaction we've had, with Timbers as a panel has just been, through whatever information you share with us at our monthly meetings. And, in general, you haven't been able to share much because, your plans have not been apparently developed enough, for you to share them. So,
and Jay, I'm more than willing to come back as needed.
Yeah.
If you guys want updates every other month or every quarter, Jay and David, just reach out to me. I'm more than willing to.
I think that would be excellent if we periodically had updates from you as to, how all of the homeowners associations in South Seas are feeling about things.
Well, we're also going through a major reconstruction process from the recovery of Ian. So, it's we have a lot on our plates right now.
Absolutely.
And frankly, Jay, to your point of, plans and trying to get them out, we had vision. And those visions quickly after Ian said, need to be plans now. So we're trying to literally do everything as quickly as we can at the same time.
Right. Well, I think I understand a lot better than I did before we had this discussion, of what the issues are and, what the reaction was. So this has been good for me, and I'm sure it has been for other panel members who live outside South Seas as well.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Bob, I think this panel historically feels it's the guardian of the environment around Captiva. And we're the guardian, I think we view ourselves as the guardian of the zoning, the permitting, and the variances and the code and various other things that.
Well, I think, David, maybe the best way to summarize is we're the guardian of the Captiva plan.
Yes, we're the guardian of the Captiva plan. And I think and everything flows from that. And that's correct, Jay. And I think that we feel we have to be extremely vigilant. So to the extent that we can work together on this, the better.
The other thing that we'll need, Bob, and this is obviously with some of the questions that panel asked is, the rendering that Captiva landing rendering is confusing to everyone as to, you have to point, well, up here is the four-way stop. I really think that it would behoove you guys to actually put this on a larger plot or even draw in the roads. I sort of had to loosely sketch from this where this was going to sit for the tennis villa owners, and so it is very confusing. And if that can be cleared up, that's going to be important to get out there as soon as possible.
I had the same problem, Ken. Yeah, it's very hard.
We talked about on our call. We talked about on our call. I've got something that's a site plan that's really not presentable. We want to do something where on the same rendering it kind of shows you where everything is.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
even if it's loose, I think it's it does get a little confusing, but yeah, anything you can put out that it would help. So thank you guys for inviting me and having me today.
Okay, well, I'm glad you appeared before the panel today. It's a pleasure getting to know you, and look forward to having you attend future meetings.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess if we are finished with that agenda item, let's all take about a 5-minute break and get back here in 5 minutes, and we'll try to wrap up the remaining items on the agenda.
Where are we on the agenda, do you think?
Well, let me take 10 minutes and try to figure that out.
Okay, bye.
And then Ken, I'm gonna log out of my office. I'm getting in my car driving to Captiva. So will you check me back in as a panelist on my cell phone, okay?
As soon as I see you, I'll do that.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
everybody back in 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, is Ann back yet?
She's there. I see her on the screen.
Okay. Well, she had to leave the panel meeting from 10 to 10:30. And I think that's where we go to next. But
I have a couple of things, Jay, but you can stick me anywhere on the agenda.
okay, well, we can cover yours, and then
Actually, Ann's not here, but Kendall with WXY, who's making the presentation, is here when you want to do that.
okay, well, I was hoping that we could have Kendall on while Ann was attending the meeting, but why don't we do this? We'll do David's agenda item, and then we'll move on to Kendall's item, whether Ann has been able to return or not. Okay, have we had our 5 minutes yet, Ken? Has your stopwatch cleared 5 minutes?
Sure, why not?
Okay. All right, well, David, you want to pick up your items, and then we'll move on to the Rauschenberg wastewater plans?
Right. I have 5 quick ones. First is the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission approved the county's slow speed zone for all of Roosevelt Channel, or here slow speed zone. And so the county is going to be placing signage on Roosevelt Channel as it was prior to Irma. And so it's going to be a slow speed zone throughout Roosevelt Channel, and that's been
I
approved.
thought we already had that in place, didn't we?
Well, the county approved it. They passed the ordinance. It then had to be approved by the Florida Fish and Wildlife
Oh,
Commission.
I see.
It just did. And now the county is free to get the permits to put the signage in.
Okay, all
Okay,
right.
that's number 1. Number 2 is John Henshaw and Carrie Schumann actually worked together to put together what's called the Sandcap Resiliency Task Force, which is a task force of various community groups to allow the public to have some input, primarily on Sanibel, I would say, on resiliency. And I think they've asked that Captiva that somehow be a liaison. And I think that PD and the panel are going to, I would hope they would agree to become liaisons to this Sandcap Resiliency Task Force, which is unclear as to where it's going to go. But I think
How would this fit in with Resilient Lee, I wonder?
no, it's separate. Go ahead, Linda.
Okay, sorry, I thought we were on break or something.
We're just finished. We just came off break.
Okay, sorry. So it's a citizens group. It's mostly going to be focused on Sanibel. They have different issues than we do. I mean, some overlap, but they have a lot of human issues. They've got issues of housing. They have issues of PTSD. They've got a lot of different kinds of issues of more on businesses, there's a lot going on that we don't have to face. I have volunteered to be the liaison. The community Captiva CEPD agreed to be listed as a sponsor of this work. I thought the community panel wanted to be one too. And what that means is I liaison, I listen to what they say, and in general, we're just supportive. It is not the same thing at all as what Kevin's doing. It's Sanibel focused, and it's the voice of the community.
Okay.
No politicians on it, where politicians isn't a bad word here, but it's much more so the individual, it's individuals who care about solar. Somebody wants to talk to me about, I mean, lots of different things they care about. Somebody wants to talk to us about how to have microgrids so that we are more resilient in the future from an electrical perspective. Okay, I'm going to talk to them about that. I don't quite know what okay, so I'm going to go off and figure it out more. And when there are things to bring back, I will bring them back.
Well, let me put it this way. It's a coalition of many organizations on Sanibel, most of the nonprofits. I think that the Captiva Community Panel we should pass a motion to allow the panel to be a liaison and official sponsor of that organization so that we're part of and working with all the other organizations that are looking at this. I'm not sure where it's going to go. We're not creating a separate organization, but I think it's important that we support what's going on. So I would just make a motion that we can add the Captiva Community Panel name to the Sandcap Resiliency Task Force just to support them and be a liaison with them.
Okay, and then Linda would be the focal point from the panel on this.
And she
Yeah,
will
the panel and the CEPD, they have meetings every 2 weeks. So I show up for the meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you will represent both CEPD and the panel to these meetings, and you're willing to take this on. Okay. All right, so David, you stated a motion. Can I have a second to that motion?
A second.
Any discussion about the motion?
I wanted to say one other thing about what they do. So
Yes, go ahead.
so they sponsored the meeting last Thursday that was attended by 600 people on the experience of the hurricane, and they're working to get opinions from the people. Next, they're going to start sponsoring different things about like how to build back better, a lot of different things based upon the interests of the community, and they'll have more.
Okay.
Where was that meeting? Where was that meeting held, Linda?
Big Arts.
Big Arts. Okay.
So
Thank
there are 300 people who came in to the auditorium and about 300 on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
It was quite a meeting because you had 4 people talk about their experiences during the hurricane. And some people said, please don't do that to us again because of the PTSD people some people loved it and some people said it was too hard. Okay, so it's a different look at things.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good group. I don't know what they're going to do, but I think us supporting them is a good thing. They will not impose anything on us. I don't think they will
Right.
compete with us for anything. We just may find things that we should do as well. I haven't heard of people around Captiva so much suffering from PTSD, but maybe they are. And also, I'm going to say one more thing, sorry. Sanibel had different issues because of the Sanibel plan and the desire to have a community that has people where you've got your workers who live in the community, the business owners live in the community. How can you provide that housing? How can you do all of those kinds of social services that we don't have? So, so they've got a lot of different things they need to work. Okay, that was it.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I think it's important. Look, it's going to work out over time. I don't know what's the responsibility of the city of Sanibel versus this particular group. That's going to have to be figured out. I don't know if this group's going to continue for 6 months or for 1 month or forever. And so I think it's just important for us to work with them and give them support. Linda, as more needs come up and it becomes clearer, if you feel you need more participation from the panel, you'll let us know. If there are problems that arise and you think it's going to create a problem for us in some way, you'll also let us know. Okay.
Yes, I will.
Well, and I think you would each month give us a quick
Okay.
update on what's going on with that.
Fine, Jay.
Okay. All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
I don't know if I can be heard.
Yeah. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, David, what's next?
Okay, I just want to draw people's attention to the Washington Post story that came out the other day about insurance in Florida. It turns out, based on that story, that the field adjusters who are doing the estimates of the damage in Florida, and particularly in the Fort Myers, Lee County area, are submitting their estimates to the desk adjusters for the insurance company. Most of these field adjusters are independent contractors that the insurance company have retained because they didn't have the staff to do it. These independent field adjusters have licenses. They've been submitting estimates, and the desk adjusters from the insurance companies have been reducing those estimates without consulting, according to the article, without consulting the field adjusters, and reducing the estimates and the payouts by up to 80%.
Really?
Throughout Lee County and happening throughout Florida. And I think if people are having problem with their insurance carriers or with the numbers and the monies they're entitled to, this Washington Post story covers it. And I suspect it's going to be an increasing scandal. But anyway, take a look at the Washington Post story about the insurance and field adjusters and desk adjusters in Florida. That's number 3. Number 4 is that that Sandy, as she mentioned, I don't know if people picked up on it. The Kevin Ruane's task force, the Lee County Resilience League, has the various branches. Sandy Stillwell is co-chairing the planning and capacity branch. I've been nominated to also be on that branch. That takes a look at the overall planning and capacity of Lee County. I'm there in part. I was willing to do that because I feel I can represent the Barrier Islands in this, because there's going to be an overview of how things are going to develop in Lee County over the next 5 to 6 years, and where development will take place and where it won't. And I think it's important that we work together with the Natural Resources Branch to make sure that the interests of Captiva, Sanibel, and the other Barrier Islands are represented. And so it's very good that Sandy is co-chairing that branch, and hopefully my representation there would be helpful.
Well, I appreciate you taking that on, David. That's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just
Kate Guterham is also a member of the task force, has been asked to serve in some capacity.
she's a member of one of the branches. I think she's on the Natural Resources branch.
Okay.
And then there's One other last thing is that just so you know, the Charitable Foundation of the Islands has asked me again. I had done this last year, but they've asked me to speak for about 20 minutes on March 30th, just to explain what our plan, the Captiva plan is in the Captiva code to a new residents of Sanibel who want to work with nonprofits and really don't understand how Captiva is governed. And I did this with the leadership group last year with at the request of the Charitable Foundation of the Islands, and I'm just going to do it again on March 30th. I just wanted people to know that. It's
Okay,
about,
I appreciate you doing that also.
okay, it for me.
Those are your items. Okay.
Those are my items. Yeah.
Any questions of David on the items he covered from either the panel or the audience? All right, let's move on to the Rauschenberg wastewater plan. I guess we have Kendall Baldwin, is that correct?
Yeah, you got it right, Jay.
Okay. I guess, I don't know if Ann's returned yet or not from her meeting.
She's here. Yeah.
Okay. So do you just want to go ahead with your presentation? Do we need to hear from Ann in any way or?
I'm happy to dive in. Ann, do you want to do any?
No, let me just say that Kendall is the senior associate at WXY, which is the architecture and urban design firm. And Kendall has been the lead architect and the contact person on this project. And she's been staying in Captiva for the past year and a half very frequently. So you may see her around town. This has become her second home.
Okay. Well, welcome to our meeting, Kendall.
Well, can I just ask, Jay, let me just ask a question of Ann. Is, just so we're clear, is this a presentation which is required under the public information
Yes.
provision of the panel in the code? Is that correct?
Yes, it's the community requirement for our permitting associated with our wastewater line and the connection to the FGUA at South Seas. So this is a requirement, and it really is going to have very little public impact, if any. It's really just something that we need to share, and it should be very brief. Certainly happy to entertain questions if there are any.
No, I just wanted to make sure the public understands that, so it meets the conditions that you guys require in order to get whatever permitting you want to get. Yeah.
Correct.
Right. Okay, Kendall, have at it.
Thank you. So David and Ann did an excellent job of covering the first half of my presentation, which is to describe what I'm going to be talking about today and why we're sharing it with the group. So I'll just start off by verbally relaying what we're up to and why we're sharing this presentation with you today. And then I will do a screen share with a graphic to better contextualize the work that we're doing. So I'm here to talk about one of the infrastructural initiatives that we're working with the Rauschenberg campus on, and it involves the conversion of several septic systems across the campus to a centralized wastewater system. Projects of this nature are permitted with the county through a process that's called a limited development order, which I'm sure many of you are likely familiar with. And a requirement of any limited development order is to make a public presentation to the community in some forum. So we chose to host it through the community panel. So again, thank you for having us. This requirement applies to all applications, regardless of whether or not the project is public facing or entirely private. In our case, the project is only serving the Rauschenberg campus, so I'm really just here to share the details of it in an informational sense. So I will begin my screen share. Hopefully you will be able to see an aerial image of the site pre-hurricane, looking a little bit more lush than it does at the moment. As I alluded to, the project that we're implementing is a centralized wastewater network. It will serve 7 of the buildings across the central and eastern portions of the Rauschenberg property. What we're intending on doing is abandoning the existing septic systems that are at each of the houses in the central and eastern portion of the property, and to connect each of them to an underground pipe network, which you can see here using the pink dashed lines, and ultimately connect it to the FGUA regulated water treatment plant, which is on the South Seas property. So the pink lines that you see here on the screen are 3 to 4 inch PVC pipes. They're all buried below the ground, approximately 2 to 3 feet. So you won't see any of the pipes, and even though there has obviously been storm-related disturbance to the vegetation that remains will not be impacted by the pipes that are being laid. So the pipe network will remain entirely on the Rauschenberg property, except for 2 instances. And if you can see my cursor, the first instance is where it travels below Captiva Drive, connecting one side of the property to the other. And then the second instance is when we leave the Rauschenberg property to tap into the system, which is on the Tennis Villas portion of South Seas. Tennis Villas HOA is aware of the project and they've agreed to its implementation. FGUA, which is the regulator of the treatment plant on the South Seas property, has also approved the connection. FDEP has cleared the work to proceed, and Lee County as well as DOT have approved the plans and engineering. So the last step of the equation for us is to make this public presentation with you today. It's been almost 3 years worth of work, so we're really excited to finally reach the culmination and start construction on it in the next couple of months. That is essentially the extent of my presentation today. Like Anne mentioned, we're happy to respond to any questions or comments that the audience might have. But that's it for me.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions, 2 questions. One, is there, Kendall, is there a lift station that's going to be visible somewhere within that infrastructure there?
There is a lift station and it's going to be just off of the driveway past the main gate. So you can see where my cursor is hovering, that's where the lift station will be. It will be visible for a period of time until we're able to replant and have the vegetation fill out, at which point it will no longer be visible to the public.
And then
the lift station will be like maybe 3 feet around, something like that, or?
Yeah, thereabouts. 3 to 4 feet. I'll have to double check, but kind of human height, human scale.
Okay.
And then the other question I had is, in terms of the pipes, there is I would like to say a good possibility that the rest of Captiva is going to be hooked up to central sewer. So in constructing this particular wastewater treatment, I don't know what you want to call it, piece of what's connected to the FGUA plant and their wastewater project. If in fact down the road, literally down the road, there's going to be that's going to take wastewater up Captiva Drive, is that in some way going to seriously interfere with the building now, or are you building it in a way that would recognize that they may be coming down the pike?
Yeah, we did plan in flexibility for future connection, assuming that the wider community develops a system or taps into a system. So we have built in flexibility for the system to convert.
Right, that seems obvious to me how you could do that, so.
Okay, those are my 2 questions.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. I don't know how pipes under roads and things work very well. If there's a stormwater management system that's put in play down the road, how do you manage traffic on who's going which way on the road under the road? You see what my question is? Will they conflict?
Like during the construction effort itself?
No, afterwards. Do they just go to, so the stormwater is going to be probably going at 90 degrees to your pipe there?
Mm-hmm.
So how does that all work? One just goes on top of the other, like in New York City streets or something?
Oh, yeah, yes. In terms of the below grade network of piping, they have to sit at different elevations. So there's essentially datums that the pipe network will rest at so that there's never a conflict.
Are those pipe network, are those levels preordained? Like we always put the water at this level and we always put the sewer at this, how does that work?
Yeah, that's something that's regulated by the local authority and local Department of Transportation. So the elevation, at least that our pipe network is resting at, has been reviewed in conjunction with the county and the local Department of Transportation.
Does it matter if it's underwater?
No, it does not.
So if the water table goes up and over it, it's all just fine.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, any other questions? I don't think any action is required by the panel on this. We're just providing a public forum for you.
That's correct. Yes, and thank you for doing so.
We appreciate you telling us what you're doing too.
Yeah, we're happy to.
And then Ken, this is Sandy. Do you need to have us just say that we have no objection to it, or do we not need that either?
No, we do not. We do not see it. We don't, if somebody has an objection, they could voice it, but we don't have to say anything at this point. We're just providing a form as we're required and have been requested to do.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's move on to the next agenda item. Hurricane discussion and feedback. Linda.
Okay, I need to share my screen somehow. Ken, is there?
You have the ability to share your screen. Just go ahead.
Oh, here we go. Okay. Righty. Here. Okay, so why are we doing this talk? Well, this is to get us a leg up or get us moving on our Captiva resiliency plans. And what I'm trying to do is tell us and get a common view. So if you don't think this is what happened, you're supposed to say something.
Okay.
So here's what we're going to go through: what we experienced, then the timeline, and then I'm really interested in hearing what you think we've done. How well did we do so far? I have a slide that has what I think on it and has gone through a couple of my friends and the CEPD. I'm sure with this audience we'll have more thoughts. The plan is to first do this with the CEPD and the panel, and then later this month, set up something on Zoom and advertise it for Captiva in general.
For the public to share their experiences. Yeah.
Yes, but feel free to send it to me, anything before then. It's not, you don't have to wait till then. Or
Right.
you could say it today. So this is trying to give a context for Charlie versus Ian. The path of Charlie versus the path of Ian. So they both hit us with in a category 4, but they took a little different paths before and a little after.
Okay, now which line was Charlie and which one was Ian?
Charlie's purple, Ian
Yeah.
is yellow,
Okay.
and then into the blue as it became a tropical storm and just went north.
Right, okay.
Okay. And these slides I'm using are primarily, Carrie did all the SCCF ones for me, and then Ken did the heavy lifting on the timeline. It's from all his notes and his wonderful communications to us all. So what did we experience? This is a photo on the left of Charlie. This is a photo on the left of Ian in 22. So in Charlie, we had winds of 30 miles an hour. I'm going to close some doors. I'm getting a roof in, which is very, very good news, but it gets a little noisy. So Charlie, the winds were a 30-mile radius. Ian, it was 75. The radius of the storm. What's the definition of radius? I don't know exactly.
It's half of the, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So the
The center to the exterior edge of the circle.
Right, but it's how they count it, I don't know exactly. The winds were 30 miles radius in Charlie. In Ian, it was 75 miles radius, 150 miles across. The eye was 5 miles wide in Charlie, 40 miles wide in Ian. Charlie was pretty speedy. It crossed the state at 20 to 25 miles an hour. So it moved across the state in about 7 to 8 hours and is considered the 5th worst in recorded US history. Ian was slower. It had a speed of 8 to 9 miles an hour, and it took a whole day to cross the state. Ian is considered worse than Charlie. It was the 4th worst in US history.
Really? Yeah, who makes that call?
Don't know.
Comes up with that.
I don't know. All I know is SCCF is telling me this, and they have lists of all of them, and somebody does it. Okay, so it's the experts, Jay. The experts have spoken. All right.
Experts have spoken. Great. That satisfies.
So what did we experience? This is just a graphic to show the wind field peak diameter in nautical miles just before landfall. On the left is Charlie, and on the right is Ian. So you can see, just to give you a graphical view, same data. Now this is trying to get our terminology straight because we have surges, inundation, all of those kinds of things. The storm surge is the additional height of water a storm introduces above whatever is typical. The storm tide is the height of the tide that includes your normal water levels and the storm surge. So the storm tide is surge plus tide.
Right.
Inundation is the water level above normally dry ground. That comes from the storm tide. Okay?
Yep.
So what did we get from Ian? We had the storm surge, we had waves, we had Sanibel and Captiva inundated. We have SCCF wave buoys and data from different points. So what we know is the waves came from the southeast and they traveled towards the northwest. It's very hard to characterize the storm surge specifically on the island because we couldn't measure it very well because it's hard to have anybody or any gauges that stayed in place. So it's easier to characterize inundation. Where we have surge, we talk about it. The rest, we talk about inundation. What does this chart show? This chart shows the max wave height, and that's in blue. And then the black one shows the direction in terms of the wave direction. So what you're seeing here is, it moved around, but then it ended up steady at the waves were going at 320 degrees and our wave heights were over 22. I forget where this, Where's this buoy? I don't remember exactly where this buoy is. Okay, sorry. So how much inundation did we get? SCCF actually went out and measured in various places. Carrie was on our island looking for high water marks. And so with what we have is inundation data. Sanibel and Captiva, this one right here, this is where we have data from. The colors of the dots show where the high water line was. This is the number of feet above ground. It doesn't mean what the storm surge was. It's the number of feet above ground. So if I was 3 feet above ground and then I had a high water mark of 4 feet, that means all of that is 7 feet up. Okay, we understand. So this is the individual data points for Sanibel and Captiva. This is where we have data points for Captiva. What they did is interpolate, meaning they they averaged things out. This is what it looked like for Sanibel. And you see the worst inundation were in these places. And then we have for Captiva. Any questions?
Yeah, Linda, you say Captiva 0 to 4 feet. What does the 4 feet represent again?
This is inundation. So like some houses were not inundated because they were, let's say they, some places were 8 feet above. We have some places that are 8 feet above water, right? So they didn't get what, they were not inundated.
When you're saying 8 feet above sea level, you mean?
Yeah, above sea level.
Okay, but we have houses that are 4 feet above sea level and had 2 feet of flooding. So,
Right.
so that would be 6 feet?
No,
it would be
inundated.
2.
It would be 2.
2. So it's 4 feet above sea level, the 0 to 4.
No. This is inundation. Inundation. Inundation is easier to measure. So Carrie went around and looked at houses and saw where these marks were, and like it would say maybe 2 feet above sea level, 2 feet above ground, 2 feet above ground.
Okay.
So we know that is true. I mean, it's real data. It's not you're guessing at it. That's what it was.
Okay, but I just want to understand the numbers. So if it's 2 feet above ground and your house is 4 feet above sea level, does that mean if that line was 4 feet in your house,
Mhm.
you're 4 feet in your house and you're 2 feet above sea level, is that 4 feet or 6 feet?
6 feet.
Well, then why, how is Captiva 0 to 4 feet?
No. The inundation, we're measuring this line. Inundation is this line. Inundation is the amount above the ground.
Yeah.
Above the ground, regardless of how high you are above sea level?
Yes, because we can get that data. Let me go back here. Water level. And so the inundation here might be 3 feet. The inundation here might be 2 feet, even though it's the same amount of water.
Well, Linda, I think I understand what you're saying, but I don't understand the result because
Yeah, that's me too.
you're showing all of Captiva as being 2 feet or less, basically. And
4 feet or less, 4 feet or less.
well, all I see is purple on Captiva.
Well, she says 0 to 4.
Okay.
You know, there's some here, look here. And these are the data points she got.
Right. Well, I'm just saying that, I know that, the on Captiva, the grade level is like a half a foot above sea level to 8 feet above sea level.
Okay,
Okay, and so if I understand your explanation of inundation, that means, and I'm looking at this graph, it looks like everybody got about the same amount of inundation, even though there are significant differences in, you know, the amount above grade level. So that means that the water height was vastly different at various places around Captiva, so that we all wound up with about the same amount of.
it was what we did, what she did here was interpolate between the data points, okay? So that's a smoothing. This is not high fidelity. The individual data points may be high fidelity, but what it was then was smoothed out. So yes, in this section right here, it says that it was maybe 4 to 5 feet. The data point is up here, and the data points are down here.
Right.
And then they mathematically smooth from here to here. That's what happened.
Yeah, Linda, I'm still very confused. Looking at the picture you have there, right, with the arrows, the 3 arrows. Let's assume for the sake of argument,
The 3 arrows, yes.
let's assume that water line is 4 feet in the house, right? 4 feet. There was 4 feet of water in that house, and that's that line, right?
Right.
That house is 4 feet above sea level.
Okay.
Okay, so you have 4 feet of above sea level and 4 feet of water in the house. Okay.
Yes.
So then it says Captiva 0 to 4. Would that be accurate? It'd still be the 4 is the
This
4.
is talking inundation. Yes, it would be 0 to 4. We're not, the general pattern is inundation, general inundation pattern.
Okay, so in some places you might have had water at 8 feet. In some places you may have water at, no, you could never have inundation greater than 4 feet. So there would never be, even if your house was 2 feet above sea level, 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet. What this is saying is that nobody had more water in their house than 4 feet, regardless of where they are.
This
Right.
is saying based upon the
Yeah.
data points we had and a general smoothing, the general pattern was only up to 4 feet. Yes, that's what it says, based
So-
upon the data.
So in some places, if you had 4 feet of water in your house and you were at sea level, there would be a 4-foot surge, so to speak. If you were 4 feet above sea level, your house was, and you still had the 4 feet of water in your house, you would have 8 foot of surge.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So this is not, okay, so it's irrelevant from this data, what level above sea level your house was at.
Yeah.
Right, it's just looking about how much water came underneath your house,
Okay,
into your house.
Well, this
Okay.
says most houses on Captiva had from 0 to 4 feet of water come into their.
That's what it says, exactly. You got it, Jay.
okay, all right.
Okay. That's what it, and this, I think, is more reliable data than the storm surge data, because we can't measure the storm surge data very well anyway. Who knows exactly, other than the photos we have of it coming down Old Lodge Lane or something like that.
Well, I think most of us know where we are at grade, where our houses are. And most of us know how much water we got in our house.
Right. And so if you know, and I think most of us will say, with some exceptions, that we got between 0 to 4 feet of water in our house.
In our houses, right.
Yeah, I'm like at 2.5 or something, 2.5 or 3 is where the line was on my house.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only reaction to this is I would have thought there'd be more variation because there's so much variation in grade level above sea level on Captiva.
Well,
I would think that there'd be a lot of houses that got, you know, a foot of water, and there'd be a lot of houses that got 5 or 6 feet of water, rather than most of them.
well, what, I don't know. It's what the data said.
All right.
Okay, and okay, if we look at the little individual data points, we've got, they're just different colors of purples and blues.
Yeah, and then if you look down at Sanibel, you can see much more inundation on Sanibel than there was on Captiva.
That's right. And you're saying it
Maybe
right.
due to Sanibel has lower elevation than we do above sea level in general.
Or that they had bigger surge. The
Sure.
surge there was bigger. And yeah, that is what this says. Okay. And again, I want to say the only reason we have this information is because Carrie and one of her
Right,
team,
when you guys went out and measured water lines.
that's the only reason we've got it, because she did that.
Right, okay.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, so what did we get? So SCCF has a recon network. And so we've got the wind speed and the gust speeds recorded by that until the sensors were lost at all the sites. At Redfish Pass, the sustained speed peaked at 94 miles an hour and the gusts peaked at 126 miles per hour. So if we look at our little pictures down here, we have the Gulf of Mexico wind speed. So we have a sensor there. There's a Fort Myers wind speed, a sensor there, and Redfish Pass. And so you see Redfish Pass zipping up and then it degrades and I don't know what happens there. I can't tell you that. Gulf of Mexico is tracking Redfish Pass until it dies. And then Fort Myers is tracking until it dies. So that is the wind speed, and then here's the gusts. Okay, so the conclusion is as of above. It shows us with peak gusts of 126 miles per hour. This does not say we didn't have gusts up to 155, 100, whatever. It just says this is what the SCCF network recorded.
Okay.
Okay. Now, in general, hurricanes. Well, I'll put both of these up. Hurricanes, we all know they happen more around the equator, even if they're called something else like cyclones and typhoons, but they all tend to happen down here. And typically they go east to west, probably because of how the earth rotates. I don't know exactly, but probably. This is the data pulled from Atlantic Basin hurricanes since 1970. The bottom yellow part are the number of Category 3 storms. The total height is all hurricanes. So, I don't understand. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so what's the point here? The point is that it looks like between started in 1995, we've got more hurricanes per year, like over 8 or 8. And
yeah, your the pictures of everybody is blocking your
that's your screen, Jay. You have to you have to kill your screen.
Oh, okay, all right.
I figured that out how to kill it on mine. So this is the average per year. And what you see here is that the averages per year have gone up since the early 1990s, and the intensity has gone up, but there's a lot of variation. Okay? Okay, good. And this is all I've got on increased storminess, Jay, because you've asked me about that.
Right.
Okay, now this is from Ken mostly, Captiva timeline. And here we go back the first 2 weeks of Ian. On September 27th, it was day -1 when we got the evacuation notice for Captiva and Zone A in Lee County. Day 0 was the 28th. It made landfall at Cayo Casto as Category 4 with speeds of 155 miles per hour. followed by a second landfall south of Punta Gorda with 145-mile-per-hour winds. Curfew issued for Lee County. September 29th is the day we woke up and saw that the causeway was gone. But it was also the day that the Captiva Fire District, our fire people, returned to the island and started doing search and rescue, and they were there on day 1. By day 3, Captiva Drive was opened and all the roads in the village had been reopened. By day 5, on day 5, CEPD, Aptum, and the Army Corps of Engineers were on island to inspect our beaches and our dunes to see what happened. Day 7, we had some Starlink capability cell towers delivered to the island. Day 8, Captiva Fire Department heavy equipment returned to Captiva via the barge. The airport opened for limited commercial flights. Day 9, the National Guard left Captiva and the first LCEC trucks arrived via the barges. And the same day, our countywide curfew, was lifted, although our Captiva curfew remained in place. Day 13, the causeway reopened. It was a miracle to emergency vehicles. The airport resumed full operations. And mail started going to the islands. Our mail started going to Fort Myers locations. On day 14, the FGUA crews returned to see what was happening at the wastewater plant, which was operating with generators. That was first 2 weeks, which I think is impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next month, day 16, the LCEC power line to Sanibel substation was re-energized. The next day, they told us that power would be restored in Captiva by October 20th. The water company restored limited water service to both islands while it remained under a boil water warning. On the day 19, our public schools reopened. And the community development building reopens for limited operations. Day 21, the causeway opened for local residents and contractors for limited access. Day 22, the main power lines to Captiva were re-energized. Day 24, the main power to the South Seas water treatment plant was restored. Day 27, debris removal expanded to the entire island of Captiva by Crowder Gulf. Day 33, our causeway opened for all island residents and contractors.
Is that when we no longer had to have passes? Was day 30?
No, we still had to have passes. We
Okay.
still had, but we could get on. We could get on.
Okay.
Then the CCA put up their internet hotspot. Our causeway was now open for 24 hours for residents and contractors. If you remember, we could only come in a limited window for a while.
Yeah.
And then the IWA rescinds the boil water notice. And then on day 41, we, CEPD and Aptum, or maybe it was just CEPD, initiated our first beach claim with FEMA in a face-to-face meeting.
Is there any way you can get, did you have it when the internet? When
Well, we're going to get to that a little bit. That it's coming up.
All right,
Now we
I'll
have
be patient.
more dates. So that now we go through week 7 through today, 110 more days. And day 61, November 28th, Sanibel began issuing hurricane passes for employees of reopening businesses. So employees could now get on. December 12th, Comcast service was mostly restored on Captiva, mostly being a key word for many of us. Day 95, January 1st, they started doing toll collection. Day 96, the causeway was open to the public we no longer needed our passes. Day 99, the curfew on Captiva was rescinded. January 18th, day 112, our regular garbage solid waste pickups resumed. Day 131, beach appropriations requested were submitted to the state. That's where we said we want this. We're working through the $13 million. February 8th, the Sanibel School reopened. I should put in February 28th, Starbucks reopened. Then on March 11th, day 169, our beach park, Allison Haglop Beach Park reopened. Now, there may be some other dates I should put in here that are important, but this gives us a timeline of what happened and how long things took. And if anybody thinks we got the wrong dates, you should let me know as well, okay? So
Can you send this out, Ken, to panel members?
yeah, I'll send it to Ken and Ken can send it all out, okay?
Right, from one data point I wish we had on here is some idea of how many people and what dates were able to return to their homes and live.
Oh, shit, I forgot to give you your.
Oh, watch out, Marguerite. When people could return, I don't have the data for.
I don't know how we would get that data. I'm just saying that, you
We
know,
don't have the data for how badly our homes were hurt. Sanibel seems to have more data about that, but I don't have anything. I don't know. I mean, maybe we could ask people when they could return to their homes.
I don't know, but to give that some thought, it would really be I think it would be good to know what percentage of people could go into their houses or return to their houses at what points in time. I mean, the other thing we've got when the utilities came back online.
Yep.
Well, the main ones being, electric, water,
Electric, water, and sewer is what we've got.
Yeah.
And so what happens then is, in some respects, that's when you could go back to your house if your house is livable.
Right.
And so it becomes an individual home issue.
Right.
I'll
Yeah,
talk to
maybe all that really matters is knowing when the utilities were back up and running.
right. And I think that was,
Well, and another key metric is when the roads were cleared.
roads were cleared early.
Yeah.
Day
I mean,
40.
that was amazing work by our fire department to get the roads passable within about 3 days after the hurricane.
That's what it says here. Day 3, Captiva Drive and all roads in the village reopened.
Okay.
So day 1, day 3, we have roads. And then what's next? Day 16, we had power to the substation. I'm not sure when day 22, we have power, right? Day 22 is power. I got an internet.
I think water was before power, wasn't it? When you have water.
No. Well, okay, yeah. Where does it say water? Boil water was on, so day 17, we had water, but you needed to boil it. Day 22, we had the main power lines. And then day 40, we didn't have to boil water anymore. And then we got Comcast service was more around day 12, day 75.
Yeah.
I think communication service is becoming a utility. So I know where I live, we have a package plant. So when that came online, that was a big deal. That was somewhere after we got the power. So now let's take a look at how well do we think we did and what worked and what didn't. And what maybe did we learn? This is my opinion with some opinions of some of my friends and updated by some people in CEPD. What worked? First and foremost, our fire department and our sheriffs were spectacular. Susie Daniels pointed out that we should do kudos to the fire district who put our fire station up such that it was accessible and workable during an emergency. Very true. Our beach and dunes worked, our beach plannings worked, our beach renourishment worked. Elevated buildings work, newer buildings work, and metal roofs work. Oh, this is supposed to, oh, sorry. Where'd I go? This is supposed to be another bullet. The communications from the panel in Lee County worked. I think they helped the community tremendously. Our relationship between the county and Captiva worked and made things happen. And I think CEPD and Aptum, as they kicked off the recovery work to get things moving and us in the queues for money, was excellent work. Now, what to improve on Captiva? I think we need to improve. Many of us think the walkways in the dunes. We want to minimize the number of walkways through the dunes and try to go over wherever we can. The coordination between the first responders and South Seas. This is Bob Walters' item. He felt that we could do a little better there in terms of getting heavy equipment from South Seas to the first responders. So I guess we can update our emergency manuals or something. I'm not sure about that. Could we reinforce the dunes better? I don't know. Perhaps we can by putting more hardened materials in it. And could we make them more resilient? I also believe we have a weakness on telecommunications. We had it before the storm, we had it during the storm and after the storm in our recovery, that we need to have a way to have better and more reliable communications in general, and especially during an emergency situation and a recovery situation.
Linda? Well, I thought, it took forever to get internet back up.
Yes, that was until, what date was that? December 12th.
Yeah.
And that was, and when you worked with Comcast, it was difficult, right?
Yeah.
Yep, it was very, very difficult. And so anyway, and I think in most places it was more like sometime in January, people got Comcast service. I think we've gotten to the point that we rely on it heavily. And we know that the Comcast cable was cut on the causeway, but perhaps we should have a cable coming in some other way as well when we think about telecommunications. Perhaps.
Well, I think this is really nice work, Linda. I want to think about it a lot more, but
okay.
Linda, I want to say two things. First off, the telecommunications with respect to cell phone service is really an area we have to do better on. After the storm, it was impossible for the sheriffs and people had Starlink on their own. There was no institutional way of making telecommunications, cell phone service work on the island. It was catch as catch can, and it was very difficult for people to communicate, which was very important at the time. So we have to figure out how to do that better. That's number one. Number two, I want to go back to this, it seems to be the acceptable, I don't know how to put it, but it seems to be accepted by almost everyone at this point, that our beach renourishment and our dunes and our beach plantings worked, right? And they're attributing to our situation being having a better outcome, say, than Sanibel. And, you know, I want to believe that, and I'm willing to believe that, but I just don't know how to believe that at this point, because,
I'll make some comments about it.
okay, let me just finish my thought. The dunes basically disappeared after the storm. They were pushed out by the storm surge down the streets. Andy Rossi Lane had 4 feet or more of water running down Andy Rossi, it was the river. Leica Lane and Whiteman Lane had, all the homes had 4 feet of water in the houses. Most of the sand from the dunes were in the first 2 houses from the beach. So the storm surge pushed the sand out and then the water came through. Now, maybe it would have been a lot worse if it wasn't for the dunes. And I can't speak for Sunset Captiva, but I suspect there was a lot of sand pushed out from the dunes onto Sunset Captiva where you are. And so maybe it slowed down significantly the surge we may have had, but for the dunes. But the sand of the dunes in the village in large part was pushed down the streets, and the streets on Captiva were filled with water coming off the Gulf. And if you saw the first pictures after the day after the storm, you saw Andy Rossi Lane and just looking like the Mississippi River. So I think you're probably right that it was successful, but I just don't know how to calibrate that or how to think about that. So when Susie Henry the other day at the CEPD meeting asked if there's some way to fortify the dunes, I think what she was saying is the dunes got pushed away, pushed out by the surge. Is there some way to keep those dunes from disappearing as a result of the surge? And I think that's something that has to be looked at pretty carefully, I think, by CEPD.
Well, and that's what we said over here. Oops, back. Reinforcement of dunes, even more resilience of dunes. And I would like to, okay, a couple things. One is this, okay, well, the state recommends everybody have dunes of 7 feet. That's a state recommendation. Sanibel didn't have 7-foot dunes. That's a fact. Sanibel also had higher storm surge than we did. That's a fact. No question about it. But we survived a Category 4 storm with significant storm surge. We did it by doing our beach renourishment, our beach plantings, our beach this, our beach that. That was a huge part of that. If we had, think back in 1985, the pictures with Australian pines along the shore, the water would have come over with a much higher force, and I think wiped out a lot more of us. I think if you did not have those holes in the dunes on Whiteman and Leica lanes, you would have gotten less. It still would have overtopped, but recognize because you had holes in the dunes, it was like having holes in the dike. It was like having a levee break there. And everything rushes through. And those roads really, I think it all funneled it through there and blasted through those lanes, in my opinion. So, and everybody at the Coastal Resilience forums that I go to has sort of the same beliefs, but Sanibel doesn't talk about the dunes to my knowledge at all.
Well, I think, Linda, I think this is really important stuff. Andy Rossi Lane, like I said, was a river of water coming down Andy Rossi, and you in part reflected the fact that the top of Andy Rossi Lane was open and didn't really have dunes because it was the public beach.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's an important fact. Mucky Duck got very little water in the building itself.
Yes.
Understanding is that the sand the surge pushed the sand up against the mucky duck and basically served as sandbags in front of the mucky duck and kept the water out.
Yeah, the pictures don't show that much. Other people think is that, well, it did some of that, but also there's a lot of sand that pushed a lot of sand under. But also, if you look at it, maybe it pulls into the river running down. You know, why go hit the building if you can go run down the road?
Right. Okay. All I'm saying is that
Yeah,
it'd be nice to really figure this out.
well, I'm telling you what the engineers,
Right.
the engineering people saying. And if you want to look at something else interesting, and this is some woman at the grocery store told me this. Okay, you know where on Captiva, where everything got wiped out, right? We had a lot of the castaways demolished. We had the Mad Hatter go away. We had the
Flamingo.
Yeah, well, the whole Captiva area was completely leveled.
Okay, no. This is where it gets interesting. She told me she did well. Where did you live? She lived right behind all of that, and she says she thinks all of her trees saved her.
Oh.
And you go look at that property, and she has sort of a fence of palm trees all around her house. And she believes that what happened is that broke up the waves enough and the force of the water enough so that she has her house is pretty good. And the cottages, I think she owns cottages. I'm not sure exactly. And that was pretty good. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you is this is not an exact science from what I have understood. Each storm is different. The results we have, except for places where there were holes in the dunes, are pretty good. And so they really are. For a Category 4 storm, we did great, in my opinion. This is my personal opinion. And I think, yes, we did a good talk at the Coastal Forum, but people were going up and congratulating the Captiva people for what they had accomplished with their beach renourishment, that we're standing. We're standing. So, so I think we can improve, but I don't know how to get the data you want exactly, unless we get lots of models and we pay people to run models of everything with and without the dunes, and then, okay, then what?
Yeah.
We're
Okay,
doing.
well, Linda, did you cover do you have other slides to go through?
I'm done, but I would
Okay.
like to hear comments. You probably don't have time, but comments from other people as to what they think worked, what they think didn't work, and where we need to improve our resilience for the next storm.
Right.
Or whatever. I would like to hear that. You can send me emails. Or people could give comments now or whatever you want to do. But I think people might have views. That's it. All done.
Okay, well, I would say another key learning from this is if you look, the houses that were elevated in Captiva all survived, as far as I know, without extensive damage. Elevated houses in Captiva.
Yep. Elevation works. New housing works because they build to building codes.
Right.
Except in those places, Jay, except in those places like Captiva Shores, for example.
Yeah.
The wind took a real toll.
Yeah.
On those roofs, and then you had water coming in from the top, and created great destruction in a lot of.
That's where you get to metal roofs work too.
Right.
That's what.
I think this takes a lot more thought to get all this right than just what we've done here right now, but I think this is important work. You know, to get a history of what worked and didn't work on this so that we can start, you know, making plans, you know, for, you know, what we're working on to make Captiva more resilient in the future.
I mean, what I've noticed, for example, and Ken Gill probably noticed this, on the Tween Water stretch, there have been a couple of backhoes, I guess, that have been cutting through the dunes and creating openings to the beach along the Tween Water stretch. They've just been pushing away the dunes and creating openings, which they may or may not be permitted to do, and there may be, you know, for people to get to the beach. But when I saw that happening, I'm wondering whether they're just inviting what you talked about, which is storm surge basically going to get to their houses. And I just don't know how you need to sort of get your arms around that and figure out whether that's something that's self-defeating in the long run, and there may be a better way of reaching the beach than cutting holes through the dunes.
Right. I agree.
The tractors are doing, yeah.
I think we have to look at that because I don't know if it's legal or illegal to do that. I
don't know.
The other thing is, so the CPD probably needs to jump on that. And a lot of it is people don't know enough, I believe. So.
Okay, well, I think what we need to do is get your presentation out to the panel members again, and each of us spend a little time looking at it and saying what additional comments we have for you.
Okay, are there comments from the audience that we should at least hear? I don't know. Ken,
how much of our audience do we have left? I mean, we've run very long this morning.
We've lost a good number of them. There aren't any questions. I think you'll want to do this as a separate activity when you can get more people involved.
Right. Okay.
Good.
All righty. Thank you, Linda. That was great. All right. The Jeff Powell campaign. This has been an amazing story. We had, I think it's something like 120 people contribute to his fund, and we're somewhere over $130 million raised.
No.
130,000. I'm sorry. Yeah, 130,000 raised, but I think that speaks volumes about the kind of community Captiva is. So we're going to continue the fundraising until we'll close it off March 31st. But Ken, you are going to make arrangements to start giving or passing the checks along to Jeff now. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm going to reach out to him tomorrow probably and see when we can get together.
Right. But at any rate, I think I suspect most of the fundraising is over now, but I think it's an incredible result that what this community, you know, has done for Jeff. Okay, Captiva Drive, vegetation and bike lanes. That's John Jensen and David. I know you've been working on that too, so I don't know who wants to speak on it.
John.
Okay. Thanks, Jay. Yeah. We thought since everybody's replanning right now, it would be a good time to meet with the DOT to go over our ordinance, which says you must maintain a 2-foot buffer along the bike path from the edge of the pavement. And we met with Doug Busby, and we toured the village, and we went up and down from Tween Waters or the yacht club to the village. We took a golf cart ride, and you know, there's definitely homes that had growth out into the bike path. So I think he thought a good idea would be twice a year they come through and cut the vegetation back pass right at the edge of, that would be the 2-foot buffer. So 2 feet away from the bike path. They're gonna
Right.
come through twice a year and cut that back. Now that includes, you know, it's in the buffer, you can plant grass, something, you can have like pitch shell, you know, something low. But I know there's a couple of homes that have boulders or rocks that are right up to the bike path. And we've reached out to them and they're gonna move those rocks back. But it's a safety thing. If you're, you know, you're riding your bike and there's boulders right up to the path and you get pushed over a little bit, you know, I think you need that. And that's why we created it. You need that 2-foot buffer. And even though the county, I think, David, they said they have what, a 6-foot easement going past the bike path.
Well, it's even more than that in some places. I think it's probably 8 feet. And
8 feet.
yeah,
They're willing to say with our ordinance, if we can keep that, they're gonna be fine with just cutting it back to the edge there.
right. So we've put out a message to homeowners, property owners, the landscapers all know it. Anything you put that's within 2 feet of the pavement edge is gonna get mowed twice a year.
Yeah. And I think I've been looking at,
anything to live and
Yeah.
not be cut down, don't be planting anything, you know, higher than about 3 or 4 inches
yeah.
in
Yeah.
that, you know, within 2 feet of the pavement.
And if there's what do they call a heritage tree, something that's just, you know, you don't want it taken down, they're gonna
Right.
leave those.
Right. But this is the end result of our effort to widen Captiva Drive for bicycling and pedestrian safety.
Mhm.
We're gonna ensure that we've got 2 feet of pavement plus 2 feet of non-vegetated area
Yeah.
for pedestrians and bikers.
Instead of trying to
Be
push,
forced out into the roadway.
right,
all the
instead
time.
of trying to push for the widening of the bike path,
Right,
just maintain that buffer.
right.
And now, Dave, was the county gonna send out a letter to the homeowners?
Yes, we sent out, Ken sent it out twice to our 1,000-person email list. So they have it. I think we have to make sure that all the landscapers get it. And then the county is going to take the letter that the panel created and then send out their own letters via snail mail to all the property owners twice, in reminding them that they're going to come by and maintain that 2-foot setback from the shoulder. And so that if anything they want to look nice, they should plant it 2 foot back. And anything that's in that 2-foot setback zone, they're going to cut it back. And they can't going to put that out itself. What we've done is given our constituency a heads up that this is going to happen. And it is enforcing the existing ordinance on Captiva, which was created for safety purposes.
Right.
And I think most of the landscapers know, but I think when I see a landscaper, I just give them a reminder.
Right.
You know?
Right. Well, I think it hasn't been enforced in the past, and I think this is a good solution. You know, to our bike path and pedestrian safety issue on Captiva Drive. So anything more on that one?
No.
David,
No.
you got any more on ordinances?
Yes, quickly, our 4 ordinances, parking, noise, golf carts, and fertilizer, was presented before the Executive Regulatory Oversight Committee, which is a committee of 15 people, to basically look at our ordinances and basically vet them before it goes to the Board of County Commissioners. The EROC, or the Executive Regulatory Oversight Committee, approved unanimously all of our 4 ordinances, and it's going to go before the Board of County Commissioners in April. They made 2 recommendations. Well, they made 2 changes in one of our ordinances. which is fine. It was the golf cart ordinance. And one of them was at my request, which is basically our our lieutenant's request, which is when they are telling their people who are renting golf carts that you can't have unlicensed drivers driving on the beach, on shoulders, or outside the permitted golf cart zones. We added, and you also can't have an open container of an alcoholic beverage, which is the county regulation, but the sheriff thought it'd be useful if we educate people to that. And so the county agreed to put that back in. They had taken it out because they thought it was a state rule, not a county rule, and they didn't want a state rule in our ordinance. Well, it turns out that we also have a county rule that makes it illegal to have an open container in a golf cart. So we were able to put it back in to the ordinance, which will make everybody happy. So that's the first change they suggested. And then the last change is that the companies that lease or rent golf carts for use on Captiva must provide written notice to their customers at the time of the rental about the rules, the legal rules for riding a golf cart. And what the committee wanted to see is a county approved written notice. In other words, instead of just a written notice, we're going to create a document that the county will just check off on to make sure it includes all the correct rules, so that each golf cart company is not going to make up its own set of rules. It'll use what's the county approved set of rules, which will reflect our golf cart rules for Captiva. And that everything was approved unanimously. The noise, the fertilizer, the parking, and I've been told it'll go before the Board of County Commissioners for final approval in April.
Okay, very good.
Great.
Wastewater Committee, really no update on that. All of our work on that is pending Sanibel completing its 2 consulting projects that they're doing sequentially. The first is to figure out what to do with the increased wastewater, the increased treated wastewater that will result from taking our wastewater, and then their economic analysis to determine how much they should charge us. Linda, you have any comments from your Stormwater Committee?
No, I don't think we have any newsworthy events that we need to take people's time with at this point.
Okay, John Jensen, are iguanas being shot as we speak?
Yep. And today's the day, Tuesday. Alfredo's out, and he's been getting them. And if anybody, I know somebody got a hold of Ken, and I think on Whiteman Lane, and wanted Alfredo to stop by, and he went over and got some iguanas at that house. So if anybody, sees an abundance of them and they want Alfredo to stop by, they could reach out to Ken or myself, and we'll give Alfredo the address.
Okay.
But he's been doing good with them, getting a lot of them. Yeah.
All right. Ken, financial update?
It's in the packet. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Well, it looks like we've been successfully raising money the last 3 months.
Yes.
And that we have plenty of funds to operate in the coming year, and we do not need to do a fundraising event this year. Is that a fair summary of the financial situation?
At least not until we get to the fall.
Okay. Is there anything further from audience that we
There
have?
was one question that came up earlier that we held to the end. Is anybody on the panel aware of any companies writing new insurance policies on Captiva besides Citizens?
No.
No.
Hey,
Okay.
Jay, are you in, what's happened with Verizon as far as those new cell towers?
Yeah,
Have
they said they're on schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they were expecting to have the permitting done through Lee County by May 1st.
Okay, all right, good.
So that is, moving along.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, could I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Anybody have strong objections? I'll see you all next month.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks,
right.
David. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.